The Most High Path's remaining dozens of disciples looked at each other in dismay. One of the disciples stepped forward to ask, "Senior brother, what do we do next?" A scholarly youngster nodded, "Senior brother Jin Yuan is injured, so we should return first. The ancestral master naturally does not need our worries." The other disciple deeply held this to be so, for ancestral master Extreme Clarity was the number supercluster, and he even had a prehistoric spirit treasure with him. Even if it was Wusong, she could not possibly be his opponent. "Senior brother wait!" Bing Qingxian suddenly shouted. "Junior brother Qingxian, what is it?" The cultivator named he asked with an expressionless face. "I saw something strange about the magic clouds over there, and I fear there may be somewhat of an incident. It would be better for us to go help the ancestral master," Bing Qingxian gravely said. His words made the other disciples amused. "Qingxian, it has been 2 years since you have come to this sect, and for you to say this, senior brother will not look into this any further." Cultivator he coldly said, "The Clear Void Most High Path is the Azure Dragon Territory's #1 great sect, and if we're to let others know that we had to outnumber and encircle, exactly. Even the Ancestral Master would blame us." "Right, Ancestral Master Extreme Clarity certainly is a very stern person. For us disciples to go help the Ancestral Master, do you want us to die?" "Qingxian, do not believe that the headmaster cares about you. It is you who does not know things." The other disciples each agreed one after another. This Bing Qingxian had joined the school for 2 years, but because his talent surpassed others, he received recognition and was even imparted the Most High Jade Clarity Sword chant by the headmaster himself, which provoked some jealousy from the others. Seeing him so naive and unexpectedly suggest they go help the Ancestral Master, they could not help but mock him. Ancestral Master Extreme Clarity was the Azure Dragon Territory's #1. For this group to go help, at that time, they would certainly be flayed by the Ancestral Master. In addition, this many people surrounding and killing a star general perhaps would enrage the Yangshan Maiden, and the gain would not make up for the losses. But Qingxian feels there apparently has been some changes. Bing Qingxian was resolute. "Do not speak thoughtlessly. Ancestral Master Extreme Clarity receives the splendor of the sun and moon, how could we fathom him? Now that junior brother Jin Yuan has sustained heavy injuries, we should return to save his life." Cultivator he shouted. "Could it be you feel the Ancestral Master needs your consideration?" Bing Qingxian nodded, "Qingxian understands. And, we must quickly return." Sword lights traveled west. If Bing Qingxian had persevered a bit more, then perhaps he could have changed his destiny, but the crowd was infuriated. Heavens might existed, but Bing Qingxian had no choice but to go with the flow. However, this Bing Qingxuan's eyes narrowed, and a shadow flew and entered him. No one noticed this minute change. Dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng. 2. Everyone was shocked. Seeing Gongsun Sheng's forehead overflow with multicolored light, it was evident she had forced herself to a most perfect state. The girl's complexion did not have any ripples, and when they saw her wave the destined star weapon, Pine Brand Ancient Sword, 3, that was in her hand, the spirit chi of the world and the multicolored light swept forward like an arm. The green clouds of the sky turned into the shape of a dragon, and this green cloud dragon bared its teeth and claws, vivid and lifelike, a glimpse into a dragon's might. Under her command, it rolled towards the Extreme Clarity Elder Immortal. So what if the dragon in the clouds has come? This immortal shall destroy you all at once. The Extreme Clarity Elder Immortal shook the miraculous Bodhi tree, dully saying, "With this many top-notch star generals, it may be possible for this immortal to advance to Supervoid stage." The miraculous Bodhi tree released thousands of streaks of jade light. This bright and colorful blue light easily broke the incoming cyan dragon. But the dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng slowly stepped through the sky, calmly and easily waving the Pine Brand Ancient Sword to no end. Cyan dragons flowed continuously, seemingly never-ending. They saw in those dozens of li of sky, all the clouds became dragons that flocked over. The extreme clarity Elder Immortal also continuously waved the miraculous Bodhi tree. The sky blossomed with green light, like a pervasive iridescence. The cyan dragons one by one were broken by this light. The scene was extremely spectacular. This was Gongsun Sheng's yellow rank star magic. The cloud-wandering azure dragon turn. Wu Xinjie yelled out. Magic energy star generals generally had lots of star magics, but to actually use the yellow rank, that one was an outstanding user of star magic, a top-notch expert, like a martial force heavenly star. With one use, they would lose a great amount of energy, so they would not use it before the critical moment. They never thought that the moment the dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng appeared, she would use her yellow rank magic cloud-wandering azure dragon turn without saying another word. This strategy was honestly that clean and nimble. She wants to break the old monster's magic energy. Shower let out a breath. Right now is a good chance to kill him. Wu Xinjie hastily said. Shower had used one, Qilin Falls Skyflash, and had her chi greatly exhausted. Furthermore, she had struggled against the extreme clarity Elder Immortal for that long, which left her spent. To break through the most high Jade Clarity sword array was still possible, but she was incapable of attacking her way to him. Wu Xiao threw off Su Xing's embrace. She trembled and shivered, a cause for concern. From the looks of it, the greatest chance was to actually deplete their star energy, but the only one capable of moving swift as flying was Su Xing. However, to let Su Xing take advantage of a supercluster number 1 cultivator in close quarters, Su Xing's girls were absolutely unwilling to easily go about this. Your servant wants his life today. Wu Xiao's body techniques warped, her running hair whirling in the wind. That noble frost demonic lotus in her hand was completely dyed black. The harm star's forehead had a dim star crest, so clearly, she was staking everything on this attack. When Shower saw, she raised her golden weapon and followed closely behind. Since the red ink iron certificate can only be used once in the birth outline anyways, I might as well go help her. Su Xing whispered to himself. Tang Lianxin wanted to call out to Su Xing, yet she hesitated, shaking her head instead. Her hands clasped together, and a ball of liquid gold appeared out of nowhere. This golden liquid was like a flower patch that formed in midair, only to turn into fine golden needles. It was very mysterious, but at this time, everyone's hearts were on the extreme clarity Elder Immortal, so no one paid attention to her. 5. The extreme clarity Elder Immortal sensed Gongsun Sheng was currently dissipating his magic energy. The miraculous Bodhi tree lost its luster and dimmed with each use, and the clear light slowly became faded. Its swings were not that light compared to the very beginning, as if it was a casual pinch. After destroying the 1,000 cyan-colored dragons, the extreme clarity Elder Immortal spat some essence blood onto a talisman, throwing the charm out. It became a giant winged creature, its entire body layered with green scales. It was horse-like, yet not. Its head had a horn, so astonishingly, it was that clarity dark beast. 6. The clarity dark horn shot a blue light, and it opened its mouth to bite Gongsun Sheng. What magic energy star generals most feared was close quarters, so the number 1 magic energy star general naturally would be so. The girl's face was expressionless, temporarily halting her magic. The pine brand ancient sword stopped moving, and a multicolored light attacked, obstructing the clarity dark beast. You still dare to face certain death? The extreme clarity Elder Immortal's sword chant turned and the miraculous Bodhi tree shook. His magic energy had been greatly consumed, so this shake had lost much of its might. It could not sweep away their attacks, but it forced Wu Xiao and Shower's figures unsteadily back 100 meters. Several tens of thousands of golden needles at this moment shot over like a torrential storm. These golden needles seemed fierce, but were far from as terrifying as Wu Xiao's attacks. The extreme clarity Elder Immortal only needed to control one of his sword arrays to suppress this. The repeated clanging of striking noises. Su Xing held the intertwined branch sword in one hand and the clinging fire star domain sword in the other as he advanced for an attack. The extreme clarity elder immortal only felt this purple thunder monster was indeed impervious to reason. Seeking out a dead end of his own accord, a galaxy early-stage cultivator unexpectedly dared to challenge him. He flipped his hand, and pure spiritual pressure directly pressed on Su Xing's stomach, giving rise to an increasingly splitting pain. Flying swords twisted to meet him head-on. Su Xing then threw out the last supreme grade talisman, Tai Winding Sword Talisman, 7, to intercept these flying swords. Then, he tossed the intertwined branch sword. The extreme clarity elder immortal used the miraculous Bodhi tree to once again shake Wu Xiao and Shower back, for he very much did not dare to let Wu Song get close. Otherwise, to let her yellow rank style open was a thorough turn of events. Just at this moment, a green sword violently struck his hand. 8. The extreme clarity elder immortal was not careful of this, and the miraculous Bodhi tree immediately flew out of his hands. His expression was greatly panicked, and just as he was about to use his divine intent to retrieve it, Su Xing threw out the weapon removal scroll. The scroll rolled out a white chi that tried to assimilate the miraculous Bodhi tree. Originally, for an astral tool to assimilate a prehistoric spirit treasure was a dream. However, with the extreme clarity elder immortal having shaken it this many times, his magic energy was greatly exhausted, and along with the miraculous Bodhi tree's loss of luster did Su Xing's path ease up. The extreme clarity elder immortal then used his divine intent to control the miraculous Bodhi tree to snatch it back, but Wu Xiao and Shower seized their chance. In the blink of an eye, they were about to arrive in front of him, so the extreme clarity elder immortal was left with no choice. He could only direct the flying swords to block them. In this split second, the weapon removal scroll easily assimilated the miraculous Bodhi tree. With the miraculous Bodhi tree stolen, the extreme clarity elder immortal was indeed angry enough to die. He even had the mind to dismember Su Xing into 10,000 pieces. Fearing Su Xing would flee, he no longer had any hesitation. He spat essence chi, and when these fell, a perimeter of 100 li was immediately covered in a clear mist. The most high jade clarity sword array combined into one, with sword tip was impossible to resist against. This was the life cast ability of the extreme clarity elder immortal's life cast sword chant. By using the clear chi to envelope all direction, he could seal the objective within. Even the territory-breaking talisman was useless, so enemies were like beasts caught in a trap, open for slaughter. It was just that the price of its use was very serious. A decrease in his cultivation aside, a complete use of the life-cast sword chant also would cost him spiritual energy that would need to be nurtured once again from the start. Thus, this was the reason the extreme clarity elder immortal was always unwilling to use his trump card until now. In his perspective, with the miraculous Bodhi tree in hand, regardless of whether it was Wu Song or Su Xing, both were as easy to pinch dead as ants. But with this change, matters were completely outside of his expectations. More and more star generals were gathering from all sides, and even the dragon in the clouds had come. After the miraculous Bodhi tree was seized, the extreme clarity elder immortal no longer dared to hesitate. He had to kill these people first and worry about taking back the prehistoric spirit treasure later. Cyan light filled the skies like clouds and mist with flying swords blended within. A cyan hurricane wrapped the three within, and Su Xing greatly felt a not-so-encouraging turn of events. Seeing Wu Xiao and Shower, Su Xing flew and dropped down between them. Wu Xiao froze. Su Xing opened his mouth, and a piece of jade immediately flew out from his body, suspending itself between them. If you want to kill him, then keep close to me. Su Xing looked at the girl that was cold as frost. With a collapsing sound, as if space had been stirred, the Wu Xinjie, Ansuan, and Tang Lianxin below immediately stayed far away from this clear mist space. Several dozen flying swords like a ball of violent whirlwind attacked Su Xing, Wu Xiao, and Shower. With this sort of power, even if it was a 9th-rank demon dragon, it would die without an intact corpse. The extreme clarity elder immortal coldly laughed. In an instant, the clear mist space broke open with a golden light. This light was blindingly dazzling. It drew closer and closer, and the extreme clarity elder immortal instinctively pulled back. He was blinded, and a cold light flashed past. Su Xing and the other two unexpectedly rushed out of the three clarities supreme sword array completely unhurt. The extreme clarity elder immortal flew aside to dodge. It was a pity Wusong and the rest were arrows at the end of their paths, weary and spent, seizing this chance to approach him only with great difficulty. Yet, it was only one slash that had cut the extreme clarity elder immortal's abdomen. The extreme clarity elder immortals might pressured them upon release. Several cyan dragons rolled towards the extreme clarity elder immortal in a counterattack. The extremely clarity elder immortal sneered, but just at this moment, a howling wind suddenly came from the horizon. The dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng turned her head to look. Her expression was shocked, and her silhouette immediately hid. The extreme clarity elder immortal's magic energy was nearly depleted, and in such an intense battle, his senses had greatly dulled. By the time he heard the roaring wind, he already was incapable of dodging. They saw a perfectly straight ray of light fly over from 10,000 li, seemingly ripping open the sky. Before the beam of light arrived, a gale came first. Bang! A sound that pierced through the world. The extreme clarity elder immortal looked down in amazement, in despair and shock. Everyone saw that an arrow had already pierced through his chest. That arrowhead was the crossed teeth of a dragon. Star energy poured into his body, exploding fully out of the tip. This arrow's power terrifyingly ripped all of the extreme clarity elder immortal's resistance to shreds. It was seriously more violent than gods and demons. 10,000 li god-killing arrow. The star maidens simultaneously changed. On a breezy mountain 1,000 li away from the White Deer Highlands. Within the mist extending into the distance where clouds rolled around the mountain peak, two girls stood facing the wind. A girl with cascading blue hair wore a court dress and skirt that exposed her shoulders. Her snow-white bodice was also revealed, the twin peaks underneath tall and straight. A long skirt extending from her back trailed along the ground. Her refined large sleeves, the graceful muslin cape, and the delicate jade hairpin, her natural queen-like air fully came into play without restraint. The woman's hand gripped the golden thread feather fan, and her other hand held a mirror. Her seemingly smiling yet not smiling lips and her mocking brow were just like a queen's. She was the noble star little whirlwind Chai Jin. And by Chai Jin's side was a girl whose face was picturesque. Her pupils cut water, and she wore a silver crystal cap. Her black hair was satiny, and though what she wore was odd, her soldierly palace dress was stunning. It was not a beautiful purple snow, but the elegant black and white lines that accentuated her slender figure, especially at this time when the woman had stuck out her chest and sucked in her belly. The stance of her two hands pulling a large bow made an even greater contrast between the woman's physique and her budding grace. The wind lightly rose. Her red lips pursed against her fine, black hair. Her expression was arrogant and dignified, yet it would not make others disgusted. It was as if she took this for granted, particularly now, when she opened the bow to shoot an arrow, standing like a divine soldier. If the first impression was absolute beauty, then the second would be an absolute extraordinary martial air. Light tore through the sea of clouds, gradually ripping them apart. Incredible, incredible. Wanyue, your 10,000 li god-killing arrow is indeed frightening. Chai Jin feigned a smile. To be able to finish advancing your destined weapon to 3-star in Phase 2, and to be able to comprehend your dark rank style, perhaps among the 108 sisters, it is possible only the harm star Wusong who has obtained her star beast can compete against you in the current phase. The girl known as Wanyue stowed her bow. Her brow had a trace of pride, but Chai Jin did not take offense. I truly do not understand. Chai Jin, why do you want to help that man? Wanyue's tone was calm as water. This palace and he somewhat have a relationship. Right now, he must not die. Chai Ling's feather fan hit her face, her tone thoughtful. the woman did not have the desire to be interested. She dully said, "Since this is so, you and I are no longer in debt to one another. We are sisters, there is no need to be this callous." Chai Jin chuckled. She suddenly closed the fan and inquisitively asked, "This palace actually is slightly perplexed. In the past star duels, according to your identity, Wanyue, you should already have signed a contract. This birth outline has ended, but you surprisingly are still all alone in the world. Why? Nowadays, star masters are all wine sacks and food bags. 2. That Xie Zhenyuan also is merely so." Wanyue unenthusiastically smiled. Since the previous generation's Wusong could become overlord, then how would it be impossible for me? Chai Ling had an expression of, as expected, it was this, ever since Wusong became the first to win the star duels without signing a contract, this generation seemed to have many sisters pursue the pilgrim's path. However, how could this pilgrim Wusong's path be that easy to walk? How would we know if we do not walk it? Wanyue's eyes were harsh, her intentions clear. Truly fascinating, the majestic star that has never signed a contract in 1,000 years has quite uncharacteristically signed a contract, and many of the sisters actually are not willing to contract. Truly fascinating, Chai Ling had even said fascinating twice, but her expression seemed to not be that relaxed, but this palace fears that Liangshan Maiden will not let this go unchecked. The Liangshan Maiden. Wanyue coldly grunted. Her expression revealed a chill. If she comes, then she comes. I will take her as a means to increase my experience. Chai Ling seemed to be somewhat apprehensive. Wanyue, if you wish to continue, without a contractor's protection, you certainly, no need for your concern, Chai Ling. I have a plan. Wanyue interrupted her. Chai Ling smiled and nodded. Chai Ling, do you know where Songjiang is? Wanyue turned around to ask. This palace would never sell this information. Chai Ling smiled but did not reply. She has sought you out. Wanyue's brows rose. Give this palace 100 billion, then this palace will answer this question of yours. Humph. Wanyue, if you truly wish to find her, the Vermilion Bird territory before the third phase is a great opportunity. Wanyue's figure dissolved into the mist, and Chai Ling looked at the mirror. In the mirror, a silhouette faintly emerged, and a warm current flowed into her. Chai Ling then knew the red ink iron certificate had returned to her. She smiled, yet did not, indeed a brazen man. He unexpectedly dared to challenge a supercluster cultivator. He possesses 5 sisters, so you must know what the consequences are. Speaking to very last words, Queen Chai Ling's words had a slightly regretful sigh. The white deer highlands, the arrow that swept over from 10,000 li, not only ripped the extreme clarity elder immortal to shreds, it also ripped everyone's thoughts to pieces. Although he knew the miraculous Bodhi tree had been seized, this extreme clarity elder immortal was already an inevitable disaster. However, how could they have expected the way he would die to be so odd and unimaginable? The 10,000 li god-killing arrow, if it was a star general that fired it, this was too terrifying. With the great enemy extinguished, Su Xing had yet to feel relaxed. Suddenly, a chill flowed past his body, and an afterimage pounced at him. Su Xing lifted the intertwined branch sword in his hand to block. A clang resounded. A cold light crossed and flashed. An ice-cold demon-like killing shadow appeared to the side, wanting to sneak attack Su Xing. Her skill at concealment made Su Xing enormously shocked. If it was not for Shi Yuan's concealment that he inherited and his cultivation of the absolute sincerity soul technique, in a war to destroy the enemy, the moment he relaxed truly would mean for a successful sneak attack by the opponent. A red airflow spun in midair, and the surroundings unexpectedly rolled with the force of a whirlwind. It collected above her double-edged sword, and a black light glinted, illuminating the opponent's face as if it was a ghost. Although she wore a black assassin's veil, those chilly, bright eyes and the black combat attire over her graceful curves made clear her identity was a woman. A star general. This was Su Xing's first thought. The light of thunder and fire could be vaguely seen on that double-edged sword. The next moment, the opponent was already once again charging towards Su Xing at high speed. Its speed was very quick, pulling the entire person into nearly a straight line. Behind her was the series of afterimages of the 10,000 Techniques realm, and even the surrounding tornado seemed to be propelling her, releasing an intense whistle. It was just in the middle of this breath. She had already disappeared. The girl streaked across the short distance between the two as if she could traverse a room in a single step. The double-edged sword's chilly light illustrated even more clearly the might of this attack. If they received this sort of attack, forget just an inch of flesh, there was a distinct possibility it could bring a fatal wound. The girl's internal assessment was that it was sufficient to kill this already drained man. However, she was actually greatly underestimating Su Xing. If it was close quarters, the Su Xing without star energy was still frightening. He did not pull back. Instead, he made a powerful step forward, his pace very steady. He hardly feared the might of the assassin before him, and in an instant, the two were already touching. Su Xing's movement simply could not compare in speed. Against this sort of high-speed close-range combat, Su Xing knew that the one that was pushed back would only fall into an inescapable grave. He only needed to shrink back a tiny bit, and then the woman would unfold her fangs like a fierce viper. That double-edged blade could pierce through his stomach mid-breath. In actuality, this was indeed correct, as Su Xing thought. The woman had already judged her opponent would be forced to move back and prepared to unleash her attack. But this exceedingly unexpected step forward rather than step back caught the woman somewhat off guard. Audacious. This star master was too audacious. Su Xing's slash was avoided by her sidestep, but his other fist landed a direct hit on her chest. It was a pity he had practically no strength left. This punch was far from being able to bring about much of a wound and could only force the woman back a few paces. A slight howl parted the woman's lips. Her purple eyes boiled, and her figure flashed. She was unbelievably fast. The double-edged sword was like the mutually intertwined fangs of a dog, and the attack solidly struck him. Two cold edges cut open Su Xing's chest. Su Xing's heart shivered, and he suddenly backflipped, his right foot poking at her. The girl slightly retreated, and his foot was away from the girl's chin by only an inch. The woman's purple eyes flashed a fleeting seriousness. Her assassination had unexpectedly been foiled. The wind's howling grew stronger. The cold breath forcefully squeezed over. An icy blue cold flame suddenly jumped in front of Su Xing, and the girl disappeared before his eyes. From the side, something again approached like a demon. This entire time had been faster than the blink of an eye and completely soundless. Su Xing saw two scimitars of jumping blue flames cross-slash towards his head. Although it caught him off guard, Su Xing still quickly stooped to dodge this close-range attack. Furthermore, he flipped backwards several times, breaking away from the enemy. The enemy that was like a shadow quickly flashed. Su Xing raised the intertwined branch sword, and a dark green light flickered. Blue and green each clashed, yet Su Xing could not take hold of any advantage. The opponent had two double-edged swords, and he had only a 7-inch short sword. The short sword cut open the opponent's offensive, but the other scimitar closely followed. Su Xing did not dodge, and instead stepped forward. The weapon directly stabbed through a faint outline, and that seemed to be a skull. 3. The scimitar cut onto his body, and the icy blue light on its edge shuddered, seemingly sighing with satisfaction from tasting Su Xing's blood and bone. The woman withdrew a step, which so happened to let Su Xing's short sword brush past her eye by only a few inches. Although the dark green light was not too bright, it illuminated those violet eyes. They were more transparent than those purple crystals, beautiful with praise upon praise, but Su Xing did not plan on staying his hand. The tip cruelly stabbed towards those violet pupils, and the woman's other blade blocked it. Humph, like a contemptible snort. The opponent rapidly shifted forward, very much agile. The double-edged sword was like a tempest that weaved a sword network. Only then did Su Xing feel what was called swift and fierce, what was called quick and violent, and what was called powerless. Su Xing silently shouted his misfortune. This woman that popped up from who knows where was so strange and demanding. That saber edge was crafty as a viper, provoking vital areas. Their hand-to-hand combat seemed endless, but to the others, this was something that happened in a number of breaths. It could be clearly seen how swift the woman's attacks were. If it was not for Su Xing's willpower being sufficiently valiant, and for his own robust military training, he otherwise truly would have found it difficult to predict her rhythm. But this star general honestly was fierce as a deluge, instantly about to swallow Su Xing, courting death. Wu Xiao coldly shouted. The noble frost demonic lotus slashed like a sudden snowfall, separating the two. The woman knew that her assassination had failed. She fearfully glanced at Su Xing, then suddenly released a clump of dense, black fog. Everyone's divine intents went wild, tightly locking down the surroundings. They feared she would sneak attack, and even Shower and Wu Xiao were completely on alert, not daring to be careless. A cool breeze blew everywhere. The dragon in the clouds activated a star magic that cleared the area. This is bad, that thief stole the old monster's astral bag. Shower flew into a rage. They had wasted so much sweat and blood to settle this boss, and the final spoils of war had unexpectedly been snatched away. Shower practically had the mind to blow her lid. Everyone looked, and indeed, the extreme clarity Elder Immortal's astral bag had conveniently disappeared in the chaos. This star general is too powerful for her to be able to judge the circumstances and prepare adequately, Su Xing thought. Seeing Shower about to go mad with rage, he could not help but be silent. He actually was not at all grieved. Absorbing that prehistoric spirit treasure from the extreme clarity Elder Immortal counted as an enormous gain, and as for the items inside the astral bag, he did not care any more. Let's go back first. I fear more cultivators will come. Su Xing feared this chain reaction would snowball out of control. Of course, that Emperor Liang was the most terrifying, for he had ordered Su Xing's arrest. Tang Lianxin released the fire beacon chariot. Do you want to come together with me back to the abode? Su Xing asked. Shower and Wu Xiao had injuries on their body, and because they did not have star nests, their recovery times would be longer some. I have other things. Next time, I will oblige you. Shower giggled. Her expression was seemingly saying, you snatched my birth treasure outline. Next time, I will for sure snatch it back. Su Xing nodded, and then he asked Wu Xiao. Little sister Yingmei went through a lot of trouble for you, so you should go look after her. Seeing Wu Xiao wanted to refuse, Shower goaded her. Raising the issue of the majestic star panther head Lin Yingmei, Wu Xiao then sunk into a rare silence. She wordlessly boarded the fire beacon chariot, sat down cross-legged, closed her eyes and let her long, black hair come undone. Right, little sister. I'll give this to you. Shower threw something, which was a purple star-grade chest. During the plunder of the purple star-grade birth outline, she had taken 2 chests in total. One of them had been very fairly split to Wu Song, making Su Xing somewhat have newfound respect for Shower. Wu Xiao did not decline, for declining would appear artificial. Su Xing again went to see the dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng. The delicate and immaculate girl unrolled her multicolored light, and her silhouette then entered the clouds, seemingly as if she had never come. Su Xing originally had wanted to thank her, not only for this, but also for the last time with the Ghost Cavalry King. When Su Xing was dreaming while drifting to unconsciousness, the girl he seemed to have seen was Gongsun Sheng. Seeing that she was unwilling to come into contact with him, Su Xing was left with no choice. Tang Lianxin raised the fire beacon chariot and flew towards flaming Eastern Island. Thinking back to the plunder of the birth outline, especially the final encounter where they faced the extreme clarity Elder Immortal, Su Xing truly sobbed. He had never expected that this many heavenly stars would appear at the end. Su Xing raised his head to look at the sky filled with stars, and then he recalled something. This Song Jiang didn't come. I wonder if she's even still alive. It is certain she is alive, and she must not have a contract yet. Wu Xinjie did not need to think to answer. How are you so certain? Su Xing asked. Could it be that you do not know even this? Wu Xiao's tone was cheerless. Su Xing could hear the girl's heart was very dissatisfied, and he did not know whether she was unhappy. He did not know anything about Song Jiang or whether it was because he was Lin Yingmei's master yet was seemingly unknowing. Su Xing was not angry. Instead, he asked humbly, please advise me. Wu Xiao looked at the knowledge star, then turned her head away. This task of explaining things still fell upon the resourceful star. Young Lord is somewhat unaware, but as Maiden Mountain's top rank, Song Jiang is somewhat of an extremely unusual existence. And, it seems she does not have any capabilities to carry experience. Su Xing heard what Lin Yingmei had mentioned before. But does young Lord know why Song Jiang would be reputed as the weakest? Why? That is because as long as Song Jiang signs a star dual covenant, then whatever position she is in would be exposed to all the other star generals. Young Lord, tell me, a completely unresisting star general is in front of you and killing her would give you an enormous benefit. The leader star protector of righteousness Song Jiang would undoubtedly die. Song Jiang's gathering is unexpectedly this tough. Su Xing truly had some sympathy for Song Jiang. So that is why no dares to sign a contract with Song Jiang these days. But since Song Jiang has such a severe limitation, is there any other special reason? Su Xing felt that there seemed to be another secret. The knowledge star did not know, saying, Liangshan continent has 9 as a restriction regarding reincarnation. Perhaps the 9th star duels would allow Song Jiang to change into something not quite the same. Wu Xinjie did not have much confidence in what she said. Young Lord certainly did form in the 9th star duels the legendary Panther Head's first contract. Wu Xinjie proudly said. From behind came a cold grunt. Remembering there was still the pilgrim who was very unhappy that Lin Chong signed a contract, Wu Xinjie adorably stuck out her tongue. Su Xing smiled, and his gaze returned to the sky, sinking for a long time into deep contemplation. When they returned to the Four Styles school, after Su Xing returned the weapon removal scroll to Tang Lianxin, the girl just calmly nodded and went back to the bamboo hut. She was fine with Su Xing being a star master, fine with him having multiple star generals, she was not concerned. And neither did Su Xing go ask her why she came. Inside the Void Immortal's abode, Wu Xiao opened her eyes. When she saw Su Xing's jade pendant was surprisingly purple star grade, her expression could not help but be somewhat odd. Lin Yingmei, Yan Yizhen and Shi Yuan all left the star nest. Through the immortal abode's spiritual influence, they began to tend their wounds. The degree of recovery the three had in the star nest was far from being as fast as the immortal abodes, and Ensuan fully used several times her spiritual aura distribution. She also began to concoct some energy-recovering medicine to assist the four in their recuperation. Only with this did Su Xing have time to go inspect his war spoils. In this purple star-grade birth outline, Su Xing's ample harvest exceeded his imagination, and even Wu Xinjie could not help but be startled. A birth treasure outline, a purple star-grade chest, 5 heavenly spirit-grade chests, 2 earthly fiend-grade chests and a supercluster middle-stage old monsters 2 astral bags. Of course, what made Su Xing feel happiness the most was the prehistoric spirit treasure, the miraculous Bodhi tree. This spirit treasure did not have cultivation restrictions, and it could break 10,000 magics under heaven. In his hand, he would simply feel as if the heavens were beneath him. According to what Wu Xinjie said, the prehistoric spirit treasure was apparently more powerful than a purple star astral treasure, but this spirit treasure when used would be even more powerful than an astral treasure. Su Xing only held it in his hand, but he already sensed the star energy in his body was being steadily sucked away. If he shook it, it would definitely turn him into a cripple. This treasure seemed to also have unbearable consumption, but it would be very impressive at the critical moment. Su Xing first of all impatiently opened the purple star chest. The purple light inside pulsed, and a magic cloud overflowed the heavens, as if there was a red-crowned crane's mysterious call. Though not many things were inside the chest, every item was priceless. 3 pieces of purple heart immortal's dragon pill, a purple domain majestic robe, 2, 50 pieces of purple gold, 50 liang of relic blade sand, 2 pieces of scarlet dragon flame jade, 3, 2 pieces of ice kite arctic jade, 10 liang of purple immortal sand, Su Xing declared one by one. The purple heart immortal's dragon pill was a wonder drug to cultivate true qi, and with 3 pieces of the purple heart immortal's dragon pill, Su Xing's purple star transforming qi could greatly cut down on the time to advance ranks. Perhaps from transforming qi, he would reach the next stage, true spirit, within just a few months. That purple domain majestic robe was an earthly fiend-grade astral treasure, with purple clouds and auspicious winding, and its propitious light was attached to the clothing itself. It was impervious to sword and spear, but it was a very big help to cultivating true qi. It perfectly complemented the cultivation of the purple star transforming qi. Looking at the purple star chest, the heavenly spirit and earthly fiend chests were not as impressive to Su Xing. Most of them were a few heavenly and earthly treasures, as well as precious stones and crystals. These materials added together actually could give Suan and Shi Yuan star weapons complete advancement to 2-star. Besides these, there was still a yin-yang jade and a galaxy stage high-grade artifact called Sky-Breaking Spear that was not too bad. Su Xing then unceremoniously dumped out everything in Ancestor Heavenly Fire and Ancestor Huai Mu's astral bag. The majority was materials, gold, purple gold and such. There were some rather good magic weapons, a few porcelain bottles of medicine, some with lingering fragrance, some bursting with burning heat that brimmed with life. Compared to Ancestor Bailey at that time, the gains were more modest, but there were several good supreme-grade cultivation methods secret arts. It was just that to Su Xing, they were useless. The sole useful one was actually a 9 chapters of Conflagration Sky. 5. Su Xing did not recognize that name, and only after he heard a bit from Wu Xingjie did he realize that it was read as 9 chapters of Prominent, 6, Sky, which made Wu Xingjie somewhat red-faced. The above introduced was a powerful palm technique of the fire type that used the force of the true fire energy within the body. Altogether, there were 9 chapters for 9 palms. The first palm was known as Conflagration 1 Shuns Fire, 7, which could split open incoming fire attacks. The second palm was known as Conflagration 2 Drives Flame, which propelled fire vigor. When Su Xing originally used the Clinging Fire Star Domain Sword to defend, Ancestor Heavenly Fire used these 2 palms to counterattack. However, Ancestor Heavenly Fire had not trained to a high degree. It seemed he had stopped at the 3rd palm because the latter were more and more incredible, with the 8th chapters, Conflagration 8 Burns Heaven, and Chapter 9's, Conflagration 9 Divine Sun, being completely capable of burning the current Su Xing to slag. However, cultivating this 9 chapters of Conflagration Heaven required fire-type true vigor. Su Xing currently had inside his body the purple qi and the water-type Heavenly Water Heart Flame. He had no idea how long it would take to cultivate this, so it would have been better to cultivate Ancestor Huai Mu's Wood Essence Nurturing Secret Technique. 8. When cultivating it ordinarily, it could save a bit more star energy into the Dantian, and it could be used as a supplement once available star energy was depleted. It sounded to be apparently somewhat helpful, but secret techniques were somewhat dubious. However, the secret techniques had still been supplemented with a mountain-moving peak-flipping power, which used excess star energy. After that time Ancestor Huai Mu used the mountain-moving peak-flipping, it was no wonder he was unable to recover after faltering. It seemed it was nothing more than a bluff. After inspecting them all, Su Xing split what he should have, sold what he should have and left what he should have. Naturally, there was still a most important thing that could not be forgotten. This was the heaven-tearing gold dragon. Su Xing waved his hand, and a long golden dragon appeared inside the immortal's abode. Lin Yingmei, Wu Xiao, Yan Yizhen and the others could not help but widen their eyes from their self-cultivation. They stared in endless wonder at this 9th-rank demon beast. And Suwen's eyes held an even more unconcealable happiness. Young Lord, this heaven-tearing gold dragon can let young Lord forge the flying sword. Wu Xinjie's eyes were suffused with light. Su Xing responded. This was even more satisfying than obtaining the birth treasure outline. The most important material needed for the heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5 elements sword's metal type flying sword was 108 golden dragon scales of the heaven-tearing gold dragon. To make 12 would require 1296 heaven-tearing gold dragon scales. Originally, Su Xing had thoroughly given up. Knowing that each scale was worth approximately 10 million liang apiece when converted to gold, just the metal-type flying sword's blade was about to be 13 billion, and it was not necessarily something he could buy. That 9th-rank demon beast was not something Su Xing could handle at all. He never expected that the birth outline would give him a chance from heaven. The heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5 elements swords, metal type, unexpectedly was the first to be completed. The spirit material that concentrates the sword is dragon saliva true water, and the other materials should be sold at Kagoshima Market Square. Su Xing estimated to himself. This metal sword was not a problem at all. The biggest problem now was forging it. Su Xing actually had somewhat of a grasp on how to forge the blade, but refining the materials was a headache of a problem. His purple star transforming chi was far from perfect, and he did not know how many years would pass to practice the 4 styles refinement to the highest peak. Just refining the dragon scales into something that could congeal the sword blade, if it was not someone of a sect master rank, who would dare go do it? If refinement failed, that certainly was a colossal failure. This heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5 elements sword that was originally supposed to be a sword chant given to supervoid cultivators would naturally be troublesome to forge. Whatever Almighty originally conceived of this sword chant would not have thought a galaxy early stage cultivator unexpectedly planned to refine it. Perhaps, they would have been scared stupid. Could it truly be that we must have a master go refine it? Su Xing's head hurt. Bringing this sort of thing out would raise a reign of terror, and how could have self-confidence for this? Young Lord, there is no need to make things difficult. Right here, there is someone who can actually help young Lord. Wu Xinjie slightly grinned with an expression that showed she had an ace in the hole. Xinjie, do you have a countermeasure? Su Xing was curious. Wu Xinjie smiled and actually betrayed the climax. Has young Lord forgotten about the birth treasure outline? Su Xing then brought out the birth treasure outline. This ultimate treasure that attracted the star maidens in the second phase seemed to be not that colorful. It was a book that could not be opened, engraved with the words, the birth treasure outline. It had 4 star crest engravings, and the pages of the book were of rare gold. Due to it being refined from gold silkworm heavenly silk, it was light as a feather. Just what use does this birth treasure outline have? Su Xing attempted to channel his star energy into it, and the birth treasure outline immediately glowed with a resplendent golden light. Still, there was no universally shocking effect. This birth treasure outline is used to record the Sisters of Maiden Mountain. Wu Xinjie explained. Young Lord, turn the birth treasure outline towards Wu Song. Su Xing complied with her words, and the birth treasure outline's light appeared. The pages of the book turned without wind, swishing, surging with an iridescence. Then, it stopped on some page. Su Xing went mute, for upon the golden page appeared Wu Xiao's moving elegance. Below her legs was a white and black unicorn tiger, and on the accompanying page appeared watery reflections of mysterious characters and images. Written clearly upon it was material that made Su Xing stupefied. Star position, Harm star name, Wu Song nickname, Pilgrim true name, Wu Xiao rank, 14th star weapon, Noble Frost demonic lotus, 3 star, star beast, white and black unicorn tiger, 7th rank, realm, 10,000 techniques realm 8th stage innate skill, movement array, 2, 5 elements, metal yellow rank special skill, 3 bowls of spirits tiger intoxication / Tenli demonic lotus dragon slaying, 3, current status, no contractor / weakened, can be conquered, detailed materials. Su Xing thought, this Liangshan maiden is abnormal. This simply was even more comprehensive than game data. All of Wu Xiao's state of affairs, all of her materials, were completely on the birth treasure outline. It could be said there was no privacy whatsoever, and as the proverb goes, know the enemy and know oneself, come unscathed through 100 battles. This was actually good, for he understood everything with the birth treasure outline. The 3 words of the current state, can be conquered, made Su Xing blush in shame. Young lord, you can go receive her. Wu Xinjie stifled a laugh. Su Xing glanced at Wu Xiao. The woman's eyes were icy to the bone, stunning without losing its frightening cold. Su Xing could see that Wu Xiao was one who preferred death to dishonor. And to receive and capture her. Even if he took the opportunity right now to capture her, this Wu Xiao inevitably would spare no effort to die in a way that ensured she took Su Xing with her. How could the harm star's harm character be the least bit as tolerant as Lin Yingmei's loyal? 5. Under Wu Xinjie's explanation, Su Xing could be considered to now know where this birth treasure outline was incredible. It could sense in the surroundings any star general, in other words, before the birth treasure outline, concealing their identity was impossible. As long as he wished for it, then all of the Star General's current state and materials would all be revealed by the birth treasure outline with a complete lack of reservation. In addition, the Star General's greatest weak point was using the 5 elements as a restraint. However, this weak point could be said to be negligible. If their realm was a bit higher, the Star General did not fear the 5 elements. If they were a bit weaker, they would still disdain using the 5 elements for restraint. It was no wonder that they previously have Su Xing not bear too big of a hope. Moreover, the sword chant Su Xing cultivated was a 5 elements sword. Whatever 5 elements there were could all be restrained. However, even if things were like this, the fact the birth treasure outline could expose a Star General's materials made Su Xing feel as if he discovered the new world. Su Xing then used the birth treasure outline on the other girls. Their cases were recorded one after another, and Wu Xiao, as expected, was the most formidable in terms of realms. All of the Star General's realms had the 9th seat as the peak, and Wu Xiao's 10,000 techniques 8th stage already approached the extreme realm. In contrast, Lin Yingmei was only 10,000 techniques 3rd stage while Yanizhen was 10,000 techniques 1st stage. Xinjie, you have another destined star weapon, 8 gates 5 metals chain. 6, Su Xing said, astonished. Wu Xinjie nodded, but Xinjie does not know how to bring it out. 7, just take it slow. Su Xing smiled, this birth treasure outline indeed is a good thing, but what does it have to do with refining the sword chant? Young lord, use this to go look at Tang Lianxin, and then you will know. Wu Xinjie mysteriously smiled. Su Xing went blank and immediately understood what she meant. Don't tell me it's really her. Outside the bamboo house, with the deep shadows of its lush courtyard, and a small bridge over a stream. Tang Lianxin sat upright and still, inspecting records and reading plans. From her face, it was simply impossible to see that she had participated in plundering the Purple Star birth outline not long ago. Outside the bamboo forest, Su Xing held the birth treasure outline with indefinite hesitation. After all, Tang Lianxin was considered to be a field. 8. There was a reason she chose to conceal her identity, and prying into her secrets like this was apparently not too appropriate. Young lord, she is vitally important to refining the flying sword chant. You must not be careless. Xinjie is not too certain whether or not this Tang Lianxin is a little sister. Wu Xinjie cautiously said. Xinjie, your think then act won't do. She must have some astral tool or such that protects her. Xinjie completely cannot sense it. Wu Xinjie shook her head. What about that star weapon? Su Xing recalled Tang Lianxin's method. Wu Xingjie still had no alternative. This solitary star is extremely reclusive, and very few have signed star duel covenants throughout the 9 generations of star duels. Even if they contracted, they would not necessarily battle. As far as the solitary star's destined star weapon is concerned, opinions differ. She is the most mysterious of Maiden Mountain's 108 sisters. Some say she has 10,000 golden void magic needles, 9, some say it is a divine hammer, and some say it is a sword and spear. In short, there is a lot. Su Xing wiped his sweat. He rolled his eyes, for he had a way that would not lack in confidence. Su Xing brought Wu Xingjie as he walked to a seat in front of Tang Lianxin and sat down. Tang Lianxin's brows rose, for she saw a golden scroll. 10. This time, I had the fortune to obtain an odd book. Does little sister Lianxin want to take a look? Su Xing asked. Tang Lianxin had an uninterested appearance. Mind if I take a look? 11. Su Xing watched Tang Lianxin's each and every move. You will see it sooner or later, is that not so? Tang Lianxin asked Su Xing back, making Su Xing somewhat awkward. If little sister is offended, then never mind. It's just that big brother has a troublesome matter, it's somewhat important, oh. If you want to look, then take a look. What else does Lianxin have that big brother has not already seen? Tang Lianxin's calm made Su Xing somewhat embarrassed. Young lord. Just what beastly thing have you done to little sister? Wu Xingjie widened her eyes, wanting to taste the inside scoop. Don't have blind worries. Su Xing looked at Tang Lianxin's casual appearance, and then he flipped through the birth treasure outline. The golden book rolled open, and wind went through 100 pages. Tang Lianxin's image then appeared on it. She really was a star general. Seeing Tang Lianxin's data, Su Xing could not help but stare blankly. She really was that rank 88 solitary star gold coin spotted leopard Tang Long. 12. Lianxin, you truly are the solitary star Tang Lianxin? Wu Xingjie was very curious about the solitary star gold coin spotted leopard's destined star weapon. Seeing what was recorded, she was somewhat unable to grasp it. The Great Void Golden Lotus, 13, little sister Lianxin, what star weapon is this? Tang Lianxin set down the scripture in her hand. Her eyes had a gold light, and they saw golden patches appear from her skin. These patches broke out from her body, and they formed hundreds of golden lotus seeds that floated in midair. Tang Lianxin moved her hand, and these golden lotus seeds became liquid gold that condensed into a single piece. This liquid was strangely both like fire and like water. It seemed very inconceivable. In the blink of an eye, the liquid gold washed clean off, and a large golden blade edge suddenly appeared from thin air. This scene made Su Xing and Wu Xingjie stunned. Tang Lianxin moved her hand again. This large blade disintegrated into lotus seeds and condensed again. This time, it turned into countless golden needles. Under Tang Lianxin's control, the golden lotus seeds practically were masters of the 18 arms. 14. Plucking lotus in autumn southern dikes, more lotus flowers than people, lower your head to hold lotus seed clear as water. Wu Xingjie praised. Little sister Lianxin's great void golden lotus is unimaginable as expected. They all say the 9 tattooed dragons Shi Jin's 9 destined star weapons cannot be reached by anyone from Maiden Mountain, but as Xingjie sees it, little sister Lianxin's great void golden lotus countless changes are absolute. Since you know my identity, then please make your move. The great void golden lotus returned to inside Tang Lianxin's body. Her expression was still aloof, a look of, slaughter me as you please. Little sister, that is a nice joke. My young master is definitely not intolerable as you think. Young lord truly treats Lianxin as a little sister. Otherwise, why would he ask for little sister before using the birth treasure outline just now? Wu Xingjie slightly smiled. Actually, big brother has something to request of you. Su Xing sat beside Tang Lianxin, wrapping his arm around her shoulder. Tang Lianxin's eyes helplessly looked at the man's hand. The first time they met, he was already like this. Nowadays, he did not understand restraint at all. A star master treating other sisters without contracts as a little sister? Tang Lianxin was slightly at a loss, but she very quickly put away this subtle mood. Calm and collected like a dry well, she asked, "What is it?" Su Xing explained the matter of refining the heaven-tearing gold dragon scales. Now, he could only rely on Tang Lianxin. The excellence of her forging skills need not be mentioned, and to leave the forging to her, Su Xing could completely be at ease. Dragon scales? Do you have these? Tang Lianxin was somewhat interested. As a tool refinement master, refining dragon scales was something that she had yearned to do for ages. In past star duels, solitary stars that signed contracts were often enticed to do so by this sort of rarely seen unique material, and Tang Lianxin was no exception. However, now that they were suited to being brother and sister, she actually did not need to accept the lure of signing a contract. Thinking of this, she looked at Su Xing with an expression that was even more incapable of fathoming him. When she saw that heaven-tearing gold dragon, Tang Lianxin was reluctant to part her hands from it. That antisocial expression finally exhibited a slight excitement. "Are you actually willing to hand this over to me to complete?" "I will be very relieved if I leave this to you." Su Xing nodded. "I shall help big brother Su Xing complete it," Tang Lianxin said. Since she did not need to sign a contract as repayment, calling out big brother was not any sort of big deal to her. Su Xing sighed with satisfaction. The heaven-tearing dragon was still awesome. Faced with Su Xing's satisfaction, Wu Xinjie to the side rolled her eyes. Bing Qingxian looked at the astral bag in his hand. He very easily concealed the boundless joy in his eyes. A girl in black skin-tight clothing was concealed in the shadows, as if her existence was an expanse of darkness. Master, subordinate, 16, was unsuccessful and could not kill the purple thunder monster. Let it be. With a supercluster stage number 1 cultivator's astral bag, it just so happens to be very beneficial to me. This can count as an unexpected harvest. Bing Qingxian gazed at the astral bag. He slightly sighed. Such a pity that the miraculous Bodhi tree was snatched away by the purple thunder monster. This purple thunder monster will be a disaster. The Azure Dragon territory will clear itself of this sort of disaster. We shall hide ourselves in a secret place to watch such a good drama. By your will, Master. The shadow dispersed. Purple thunder monster, now let us make a bet. High profile or low profile, just who can reach the very end. Bing Qingxian clutched the astral bag, as he thought to himself. With the solitary star Tang Lianxin, they could refine the dragon scales, and Su Xing was able to settle the biggest stone in his heart. In the upcoming time he would start to wantonly procure from the Kagoshima Market Square the other materials to refine the metal-type flying swords dragon saliva true water. At several of the Azure Dragon territory's largest market squares, he used many days to take in information from everywhere, shuttled to all kinds of auctions, conducted fair trades and other exchanges. Afterwards, Su Xing finally could be considered as having finished gathering all the materials. Of course, he had spent a lot, a value of approximately 20 billion gold, more or less. Just the spirit materials required for the dragon saliva true water had used more than 12 billion. In order to not arouse the suspicions of others, Su Xing borrowed those sect tokens that Shi Yuan had and used the change appearance pill to gather the materials one after the other. What made him happy was that Yanizhan's missing 3 pieces of yin-yang jade was obtained using a little more than 3 billion, and he had also managed to get 2 pieces of ice kite arctic jade. After this purple star birth outline ended, the market square's items would only naturally be far better. And during this period of time, the Azure Dragon territory also erupted with an unprecedented tremor. Without him, the Extreme Clarity Elder Immortal acting as the Azure Dragon territory's top-notch supercluster cultivator had unexpectedly been done in when he confronted Wusong. This certainly made the entire Azure Dragon Territory's sex extremely frightened. This star general sure enough was a fiend star best not provoked, and the Purple Thunder monster getting rid of 2 supercluster middle stage cultivators was, on the contrary, not that shocking. However, the Most High Path, the Divine Flame Sword Sect, and the Tai Sword Sect had already issued a joint eradication order. 2. Anyone that informed on the Purple Thunder monster would receive the rewards of the Great Sects, and if they could kill him, the reward was even more generous. With this, 3 of the Azure Dragon Territory's 4 Great Sword Sects had already vowed to exterminate the Purple Thunder monster. Of course, what made people most surprised was that the Most High Path also had issued an Alliance of 10 Chase to Kill on the Purple Thunder monster. Reportedly, the Extreme Clarity Elder Immortal's death had something to do with him, and how could the Azure Dragon Territory's number 1 Great Sects Chase to Kill be compared with the Blooming Water Sword Sects? With the Alliance of 10 Chase to Kill was issued, perhaps the Purple Thunder monster truly would completely lack ground to stand upon because they knew that if they discussed the fugitive, the Most High Path's abilities were very profound. If they also added that somewhat pointed arrest warrant of Emperor Liang's, that Purple Thunder monster practically had offended the major powers of the entire Azure Dragon Territory. It made people gasp in amazement. This was the very first time that this had occurred in the Azure Dragon Territory, and they could not help but change their views on this Purple Thunder monster from monster to demon. With this, every cultivator felt this Purple Thunder monster was truly dead without doubt. At this point, the person involved hardly understood this sort of thing. For now, he soaked all of his life into refining the first life-cast Flying Sword's excitement. The Purple Star Grade Void Immortal's abode. At this moment, the abode was completely sealed. Several beautiful maidens kept watch nearby. Having gone through 10 days' rest with Ensuan's care, Lin Yingmei and Shi Yuan had both recovered to 40–50% strength. However, because Yan Yizhen was in an extremely debilitated state and had used her vital energy draining 3 arrows lethal crossbow, her recovery was the slowest. She was at approximately 20%, but this was exceptional. Draped in the purple domain robes, Su Xing sat within a golden array, calmly meditating. He used the heart-like mirror absolute sincerity soul technique to make his vigor completely stay in its most tranquil state, the so-called peace with oneself. He completely lacked exhaustion, and the more tranquil his attitude as he refined the life-cast sword chant, the more his dominance over it. Su Xing sucked in a deep breath and moved his hand. He first took out a warm, golden box from his astral bag, setting it evenly on the floor in front of him. He opened its lid, revealing a condensed golden liquid that appeared almost like golden ceramic glaze. This golden glass was what 108 heaven-tearing gold dragon scales were refined into. In the watery gold, there was a faint ripple, which also flashed several bits of golden spirit chi. This spirit chi was like a sword, seemingly severing empty space. Worthy of Maiden Mountain's most first-rate tool refinement star general, her brilliant refinement method made all the dragon scales emerge unharmed. Not only were they perfectly refined into a sword material to solidify a sword, she had also completely retained the heaven-tearing gold dragon's natural sharpness. Tool refinement scholars were all incapable of doing this better. Su Xing solemnly stared at this lump of golden dragon scale glass. Taking a deep breath, he extended one finger to lightly poke the glass inside the box. Immediately, that golden glass flew out of the box, suspending itself in front of Su Xing. With this brilliant tool refinement method of Tang Lianxin's, if she refined the flying sword, perhaps it would be more beneficial. It was a pity that this life-cast sword chant was incapable of borrowing the hands of another. He could only rely on his own life-cast star energy to go refine it, and he could not make the slightest mistake. Su Xing mentally reviewed one more the procedure for tool refinement. Then, with a serious hand seal, his entire body emitted purple clouds and an auspicious light, enveloping the entire Void Immortal's abode in a deep purple. There were thousands of rays of purple light, tens of thousands of clouds, and it possessed an indescribable profundity. Even Wu Xiao could not help but have a flash in her eye, and from her perspective, the Su Xing at this moment actually lived up to the name, Purple Thunder Monster. Following the purple light reaching its limit, Su Xing struck another hand seal, and a fine as silk purple magic breath flew out from his finger, spraying onto the golden glass. With a crack, the originally keen spirit qi on the glass surface sprung out as if it had substance. It completely lacked restraint as it twisted to attack the purple qi, not letting it approach by even half a step. It had unexpectedly started to fight Su Xing's purple qi. Su Xing did not feel surprised. The 9th-rank demon beast heaven-tearing gold dragon scales originally were resolute spirit items, so how could refining them be this simple? On the contrary, the more resistant it was, the more excited Su Xing became because this sort of refinement would produce a flying sword of greater spiritual power. Using 3 Purple Heart Immortals dragon pills, Su Xing's purple qi had already reached a peak. The purple qi immediately swelled, instantly wrapping the golden glass within, and the purple qi began to continuously corrode the glass. This was a very exhausting process that was extremely draining in star energy, with no tolerance for accidents. But not much time had passed when the golden glass surface showed signs of melting. Some parts had begun to faintly shine, and densely packed beads of liquid seeped out. Several hours passed like this, and the golden glass finally began to become soft, slowly changing into a liquid. Su Xing struck a hand seal, and a golden light that emerged from one of the magic circles in the array wrapped up the dripping liquid. It floated in midair like a ball, continuously spinning as it turned into a taiji symbol. Su Xing exhaled, only feeling that his whole body's star energy was close to being sucked dry. He was secretly shocked, for his peak galaxy magic energy was middle stage at the minimum or above. But even if this only refined the dragon scale material of the first flying sword into an embryonic form that was a waste, this was still inside his purple star immortal's abode. Big brother. And Suan hastily used spiritual aura distribution on Su Xing while Wu Xingjie wiped his sweat. Young lord, can you persist? N. This immemorial sword chant is indeed somewhat strenuous. Su Xing deeply inhaled, ingesting several star energy replenishment medicines that were prepared in advance. Star energy recovery medicines always were very costly, and the price of this dozen was more than 100 million. He really had somewhat of painful feeling, for if this continued, just 12 flying swords would need more than 1 billion at the least. A normal galaxy stage cultivator without the support of a sect or clan really would be something a scattered star cultivator could play with. From one perspective, Su Xing was extremely abnormal, to the point of making people's hair stand on end. Elder sister Lianxin, young lord doesn't have a problem with this, right? Sure Yuan asked the Tang Lianxin next to her. Acting as supervision for the refinement of the sword chant's powers, Tang Lianxin continuously stared at Su Xing's each and every move. She nodded. Resting for a moment, Su Xing again began to refine the second flying sword's dragon scale. Then, there was a period of endless refining. Using dragon scales as material to refine a flying sword, your master's ambitions are not small. A complicated and hard-to-understand sneer flit across the corner of Wu Xiao's mouth. Is little sister Wu Song impressed? Wu Xinjie smiled. Wu Xiao disapproved. She wanted to discuss with Lin Yingmei her contract, but instead, she found that the girl's gaze currently was locked tightly on that man. How could those anxious eyes have even half a shred of insincerity? Wu Xiao was very upset at this, but she said nothing. She closed her eyes, only resuming her own recovery to peak condition with all haste. This refinement lasted 12 entire days. At this moment, Su Xing stood on the heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5 elements swords, metal element sword refinement array. In his surroundings was a complex and cryptic profound array. 12 faintly linked arrays raised 12 beams of golden light, and floating inside the light were 12 golden water balls. Su Xing glanced all around, his expression satisfied. After settling its embryonic stage, next was the most important step, sword chant shape modeling. Su Xing's divine intent activated, and the more than dozen boxes inside the magic circle opened in succession. Inside them appeared a transparent, balmy liquid. This was the dragon saliva true water. It was a dragon's most loved item that received the name dragon saliva, and using it to reinforce the spiritual nature of a dragon scale sword blade was absolutely necessary. After placing dragon saliva true water inside, the rest of the supplementary materials also flew into the water ball one after the other. Then, 12 streaks of divine intent shrouded the surroundings, like a spider's web. The metal element sword refinement array's magic circle fully opened, and light began to revolve. The 12 golden dragon scale liquids began to fluctuate form under the control of both Su Xing's divine intent working with the array. Those drifting liquids little by little were concentrated and stretched into a length, turning flat. Afterwards, a 5 or 6 inch long sword embryo gradually took shape. Su Xing deeply let out his held breath, his expression slightly relaxing. Then, he felt his brain was somewhat faintly in pain, and he could not help but smile. Simultaneously refining this many swords in one breath made Su Xing feel very strained. The majority of star cultivators refined life-cast sword chants separately most of the time, not like the way he was doing. However, Su Xing felt that since this was a life-cast sword chant, naturally, a simultaneous completion was best not passed up. The gold coin spotted leopard Tang Lianxin also approved of this view. But even if the most important divine sense form was already complete, Su Xing still did not dare relax further. After forming the sword embryo, Su Xing again used purple qi to temper the refinement. The flying sword was already beginning to take shape. Su Xing formed a hand seal, making the magic circle stop. The light dissipated, and 12 golden flying swords floated motionlessly in midair. Su Xing ran his eyes over them. He saw these flying swords were practically identical, without blemish. Relaxing, a red petal floated out from within the astral bag. Life-cast heart flower. The solitary star was stunned. This was but a rarely seen flower for refining life-cast flying swords. Wu Xiao's brow deeply creased. Why did she feel that this guy in front of her had more capital than those great sects? Dragon scale sword chant, life-cast heart flower, this really was too unimaginable. Even a few great sect star masters could not possibly match his extravagance. Wu Xiao made a short assessment, calculating the costs of completely refining these 12 golden life-cast flying swords was maybe close to exceeding 40 billion. Just what was this guy's background? Su Xing chewed that petal to pieces in his mouth, and biting a bit harder, he slightly bit open the top of his tongue, spraying out some essence blood. It condensed in front of him into a clump of blood the size of a thumb, and the mixture of life-cast heart flower and essence blood dimly glowed. Under Su Xing's control, this blood dripped onto the sword embryo. The moment the essence blood touched the flying sword, it immediately dodged into the middle at a lightning-fast speed, disappearing without a trace. After, he again bit another petal, and in identical fashion, he consumed 12 life-cast heart flowers to drip essence blood onto the 12 flying swords. His divine intent locked in, and the 12 flying swords slowly trembled. Su Xing promptly felt a sort of soul had been removed. Knowing that this was the life-cast heart flower taking effect, Su Xing let out a deep breath. Having finished this, Su Xing again followed the refinement method of the metal element flying sword. Similarly, he added the other supplementary materials into the 12 sword embryos. Then, he once again used purple qi to refine them. When it came time to engrave names into the flying swords, Su Xing stopped to think. Since it was the heaven-tearing golden dragon, it would be named Heaven Tearing. A carved Heaven Tearing immediately appeared on the sword's hilts, and then he used divine sense on the flying sword to carve a few incomprehensible magic circles and scripts. In other words, he did not dare be careless about a single detail. Another 5 days passed like this, with Su Xing standing inside an array, surrounded by 12 floating golden flying swords. The flying sword's appearance was of pure, glittering gold, completely lacking any blemish. The sword's edge had a layer of faintly visible dragon scales. Layered like waves, it appeared oddly shaped. These flying swords danced in the surroundings as if they had spiritual natures, and a golden light blinded the eyes. Along with Su Xing's final use of the dragon saliva, true water and purple qi, immediately, the metal element heaven tearing was successfully completed. Su Xing's divine intent slightly moved, and the 12 flying swords were commanded under his will as if they were his own arms, with a sort of grandeur that could casually cleave mountains and crack seas in a single strike. For the sake of refining these 12 heaven tearing, Su Xing nearly was bankrupt. If he did not have that support of 10 billion from Chai Ling, perhaps he would be in a deficit. This effort could count as not having been wasted. And I wonder how powerful these flying swords are. Su Xing thought aloud, using several sword strokes. Allow your servant to test about with young master. Lin Yingmei stepped forward to volunteer. No. Su Xing saw Lin Yingmei had not completely recovered, so why would he be willing to allow her to spar? This is something your servant ought to do. Lin Yingmei shook her head. Then allow your servant to play with you. A cold and charming voice interrupted their conversation. Everyone turned their heads, and they saw the continuously meditating Wu Xiao open her eyes. She gracefully rose while her flowing hair trembled and swayed. She pet the white and black unicorn tiger beside her and walked directly to an open area. Having gone through this recent month of recuperation, Wu Xiao now had completely recovered. Even her star weapon had been refined to 3-star along the way. 2, Xiao. Lin Yingmei's brows wrinkled. Little sister Wu Song is rather powerful, it would be better to not proceed. Wu Xinji chuckled, evidently not at ease with this harm-star pilgrim. Are you afraid? Wu Xiao glanced at Lin Yingmei, her gaze fixed on Su Xing. The corner of her mouth had slight ridicule. For Wu Xiao to come seek me for sword sparring, indeed, this is exactly what I've been looking for. Su Xing was eager to give this a try, not caring in the slightest. Seeing Su Xing speak as such, the rest had nothing to say and left the two with a wide, open area. This was within Su Xing's immortal's abode, so even if Wu Xiao were any more powerful, she could not possibly do anything against Su Xing. Wu Xiao's eyes vaguely held a chill, and a sort of oppressive feeling hit him in the face. Su Xing discreetly took precautions. The 12 flying swords beside him seemingly sensed Wu Song's pressure and whined. You initiate. Your servant disdains taking unfair advantage of you. Wu Xiao spoke her mind. Then, excuse me. Su Xing raised his hand. Heaven tearing immediately shot forth, and the 12 sharp rays of golden light attacked to Wu Xiao's front in nearly the blink of an eye. The girl's silhouette flashed by, perhaps she had not moved at all, but her pace was light and on the move. The afterimage she left behind had already dodged the flying swords. Such swift speed. Su Xing saw Wu Xiao instantly rushed out of the flying sword's obstruction, startling him. He formed a hand seal, and the flying swords became golden threads. The air immediately was adorned with a golden net, but the flying swords had not yet arrived, the tips almost reaching. Wu Xiao left countless afterimages, but heaven tearing completely lacked gaps. They each swept through the afterimages one by one, golden light and quicksilver splattering onto Wu Xiao's body. Clang, clang. The crisp sound of weapons clashing. A black long sword speckled with a snowflake appeared in Wu Xiao's hand. The pilgrim's eyes held a deep caution. Su Xing's divine intent moved, and the golden light was like a suddenly falling galaxy. The 12 heaven tearing passed through Su Xing's meticulous forging, and with each material being of the highest quality, how could it be compared with a normal flying sword? The edges of the dragon scale patterns on the sword glowed, and the sword qi turned from a thread into a river. Even if they were separated by 100 meters, that sharp sword qi could be sensed. Wu Xinjie and the rest were shocked and elated, hastily retreating and opening star energy barriers. In the heavenly spirit earthly fiend purple star 5-element sword, the metal element was originally a sword chant that tipped the main assault. This usage naturally was mighty and terrifying, and although this was galaxy stage cultivation, in Wuxiu's eyes, this was more extreme than that most high jade clarity sword chant. Wuxiu did not dare be careless. The noble frost demonic lotus black chi and white light intertwined with each other. This was a 3-star destined weapon, enough to topple a galaxy stage sword chant, but against the fierce close combat of this, heaven-tearing sword chant, Wuxiu unexpectedly was suppressed for a while by its powerful attacks. Her cool and elegant pupils seemingly shrunk, somewhat not daring to believe this. Wuxiu shouted, and the double-headed sword abruptly spun. The sword tip finally blocked Heaven Tearing's attack. The woman leapt upwards in a high jump that wound up above Su Xing. Then, the noble frost demonic lotus shockingly fell towards his face. Su Xing promptly stepped back, but the sword chi transmitted by the noble frost demonic lotus still ripped his body enough to hurt. Striking 2 sword chants in succession, Wuxiu was about to continue her assault when a golden light whooshed to block her front. Go! Su Xing chanted. The sword light drained and crossed with the noble frost demonic lotus. The two fought for several rounds like this. Su Xing's life-cast sword chant had only just been and his control over it was imperfect, but even so, the might of Heaven Tearing still greatly exceeded his expectations. The 12 heaven-tearing swords, whether it be twisting, surrounding, chopping, or hacking, sword styles were alternately assumed unpredictably. Each sword unexpectedly attacked with a dragon's howl, and when true spirit bubbled forth, the sword intent was biting cold. Wuxiu's counterattack could not be described as ineffective either. Worthy of being called the cool and elegant pilgrim of 10,000 Technicist Realm Stage 8, her attitude was still composed as before confronting the heaven-tearing's fierce offensive. Calm as water, every one of her movement, every stroke of her noble frost demonic lotus brought blizzards that were graceful and free. The 3-star destined weapon was indescribably powerful, and gradually, Su Xing felt he could not support any more. A trace of something strange appeared in Wuxiu's eyes. Su Xing grit his teeth, and controlling the sword chant, the 12 heaven tearings rose into the air and rained down 10,000 golden beams. Su Xing struck a hand seal. The flying swords abruptly left Wuxiu's surroundings, but the next second, they attacked her from every direction, filling the sky with flying swords. Heaven-tearing sword array. 3. The corner of Wuxiu's rose into a chilling curve. That was a kind of victorious smile. Not good. Su Xing's heart went cold. Wuxiu clenched the noble frost demonic lotus. She completely lacked fluster as she confronted the flying swords shooting over, and she suddenly harshly hacked empty space. Thump. A sort of sound that was like ice shattering. A black demonic lotus flower seemingly had been cut down by this empty slash. When the golden light shot onto her body, it was like it encountered a formless object that shook them off one after another. The immortal's abode seemed to be shaken by an earthquake, and a black snowstorm passed. He saw long hair fly, and Su Xing was shocked because Wuxiu had unexpectedly reached his front. Wherever the woman was, the space had withered black lotuses. The faces of Wu Xinjie and the others changed. Co. Lin Yingmei hastily rushed forth. But she was already unable to block her. This was the Harm Star's second yellow rank tactic. Tenli demonic lotus dragon slaying. Wuxiu instantly exerted strength, and Su Xing felt his neck go cold. The noble frost demonic lotus sword tip stuck against his neck. Su Xing wanted to use an escape technique, but he found his whole body seemingly had been locked up by the ice and snow demonic lotus, that he could not muster any strength. Wuxiu's right hand raised the sword to press it against Su Xing's neck while her left hand gripped Su Xing's shoulder. Then, her body leaned slightly forwards, leaning onto Su Xing's body, continuously leaning forwards and pushing Su Xing back. Their heights were nearly the same, and their faces were on the same level. That serene lotus fragrance of Wu Xiao's assailed his nostrils. The woman's cool and elegant eyes were right in front of his. Although they seemed cold to the extreme, they let Su Xing read traces of unclear information. In this pushback, Wu Xiao directly pushed Su Xing to the border of the immortal's abode, slamming him against the mountain. That plump chest of Wu Xiao's pressed against Su Xing's stomach. At this moment, the cool and elegant pilgrim almost seemed to forget this intimate action. Her red lips moved close to Su Xing's ear, and she icily said, "Rescind your contract with Ying Mei. Otherwise, your servant shall kill you right now." The sword tip pressed harder, and a trace of blood appeared on his neck. This sort of expression isn't bad. Su Xing smiled without feeling any danger. "Do you believe your servant will not carry through with this?" Wu Xiao's tone was like spider silk, winding around people uncomfortably. "I absolutely believe you," Su Xing earnestly said. "For Ying Mei to be able to have a friend like you, I am very thankful." "Do not speak such honeyed words to your servant," Wu Xiao stared, her tone falling even closer to the freezing point. "Wu Song, what are you doing? Quickly release young lord." "Wu Xiao." The other girls rushed over at this time. The white and black unicorn tiger pounced out, making the beauties incapable of coming close. An icy shadow suddenly stabbed forth. Wu Xiao glanced at that figure out of the corner of her eyes. She bit her lip and released Su Xing, withdrawing. She did not want to fight, at least if it was against her. Lin Ying Mei grasped the Arctic Star Serpent Spear, her expression ice-cold and in conflict. "Ying Mei, there is no need for you to do this again," Wu Xiao shouted. Just as Lin Ying Mei was about to advance and launch an attack, Su Xing patted her shoulder, stopping her movements. "Ying Mei, if you wish to rescind our contract, you can rescind it at any time." Lin Ying Mei froze. Then, she immediately understood what Wu Xiao was thinking. She turned her head to look at the pilgrim, saying, "Wu Xiao, do you believe your servant has been coerced? Could it be you are not?" Wu Xiao icily said. How could she believe the majestic star would be delighted to sign a contract? "It was because young master wished to save your servant that he would sign a contract." Lin Ying Mei spoke each word one by one. "What your servant and young master signed was the kiss contract." "What?" Wu Xiao was shaken. Let alone that this greatly exceeded her imagination, even Yanizhen, Wu Xinjie and the rest exposed astonishment. They previously had always been very curious about how the majestic star signed a contract, thinking through many different scenarios, but to speak of, because of a kiss contract to save Lin Ying Mei, that was never imagined. "Impossible, Ying Mei, there is no need for you to speak for this man." Wu Xiao's expression was somewhat unsightly. "Do you believe your servant would deceive you?" Lin Ying Mei's tone was firm, completely lacking the least bit of insincerity. "Young master only signed this contract in order to save your servant, and after that, young master was still willing to rescind the contract. But, Xiao, do you feel Ying Mei is someone who forgets favors and violates justice? He must have used some despicable trick." Wu Xiao herself was out of breath as she spoke. Because the conditions for the third contract type, the kiss contract, were that the contractor had to care about the Star General and had no wish to sign a contract. For Lin Ying Mei, and Wu Xiao knew this as well, if a despicable trick was actually used, how could the majestic star not know? "Wu Xiao, you listen well. Your servant, Lin Ying Mei, for all her life, is young master's woman." Lin Ying Mei's voice was like snapping ice, its mic shaking the immortal's abode, each word loud enough for the deaf to hear. Everyone was dumb as a wooden chicken. Wu Xinjie only felt, what 1,000-year contract, what together to hell. Those pale compared to this declaration of Lin Ying Mei's. Kunlun Mountain Range. Hailed as the #1 spirit vein mountain, legend had it that 1,000 years ago, Grand Supreme Zhenjuan, 2, meditated at Kunlun and comprehended that most high indifference, 3, moving to transforming star of annihilation. He left behind countless legends, and 100 years afterwards, a down-and-out boy on the Kunlun Mountains found the text for the Most High indifference. He practiced it for 100 years, and henceforth reached heaven in a single bound. Furthermore, he swept across the Kunlun mountain peaks, establishing what would someday be the Azure Dragon Territory's #1 great sect, the Most High Path. 3 Clarities Field was where the spiritual aura of the Kunlun Mountains was most rich. The mountain was 10,000 zhang high, with clouds rolling around, its true spirit abundant. A massive main hall was faintly discernible within the mist, as if it was in a painting, making others see unclearly. The emerald peaks all around stood tall over hundreds of large and small halls and pavilions. Mist and cloud flowed past these pavilions, as if they were in the clouds. If one were to enter the valleys that those emerald peaks surrounded, raise their head to look around, then they would find that immense located below rippled the white clouds. Surprisingly, it was seemingly hovering in midair, a flight of stairs seemingly formed from white clouds, wondrously long. It led to that huge palace that was a minimum of several hundred zhang high off the ground. That was made completely of large blocks of white jade, appearing pure and holy, solemn and dignified. 3 Clarities Hall, the Most High Path's main hall. At this moment, the hall doors tightly closed, and the hall had more than 10 cultivators of varying appearances and of both genders sitting upright upon prayer mats. Some had the countenance of tightly wrinkled brows, some had 2 eyes of fury, and others were calm as water. Each face was different, and if Su Xing were present, he would be greatly startled. Looking at the robes of these cultivators, astonishingly, they came from each of the 10 great sects. Each had profound cultivation, were great cultivators that underwent secluded cultivation, and among them, there was even a cultivator from the royal family. And these great sects that focused every day on seclusion without care for the outside world were at this moment at a gathering of adepts, clearly calculating something. The purple thunder monster was not eliminated. He must be the next demonic head, an endless disaster. The one who spoke wore a blue water robe. He came from the Blooming Water sect and was known as Ancestor Qianli. The Blooming Water Sword sect had 3 great ancestral masters named Bailey, Qianli, and Wanli. Each had refined cultivation and very rarely revealed themselves. Although it seemed Ancestor Qianli was supercluster middle stage, his powers were extremely profound. Due to his excellent Blooming Water Divine Thunder, there were very few of the same realm that could be his opponent. Lin Chong has signed a contract, and it is by means of Lin Chong's hand that he provokes our sects like this. If we do not do more, the Azure Dragon Territory will be a laughingstock. A green-robed elder said coldly. He was a secluded great cultivator from the Tai Sword sect, and his cultivation was already supercluster late stage. The Tai Sword sect this time had suffered the loss of an ancestral master and a carefully nurtured star master, making the sword sect from top to bottom unanimously make haste to kill the purple thunder monster. Exactly what Taoist Master Qinglian said. Could it be that our Azure Dragon Territory is being humiliated for amusement by a tiny purple thunder monster? I hear he is but only a galaxy early stage cultivator, without even a sword chant. A woman wearing a fire-patterned red robe had a bantering tone, but her eyes were cold. Her beautiful hands played with a red lotus fire. She was the Divine Flame Sword sect's Red Lotus Fairy, with a cultivation that reached the apex of supercluster late stage, with imminent entry into supervoid stage. Because she had face-setting pills, they allowed her to appear very young and pretty. That pair of vermilion eyes was like a burning inferno. The 3 great sword sect ancestral masters of the 4 great sword sects were the very first to issue the argument to kill the purple thunder monster. And how does Headmaster Handan of the Shifting Flower Sword sect see things? The Red Lotus Fairy's eyes mockingly gazed at the woman beside her. Although Handan was once a headmaster, she could compare to these present old monsters that did not care for the things of the world. Her qualifications were short by only a bit, and she immediately reverently agreed. The elders of the Shifting Sword sect have gone to the Vermilion Bird territory to plunder the birth outline and have not yet returned. However, I will approve in their stead. Who knows whether or not the next victim would be our shifting sword sect. Her words made the others show satisfied smiles. The shifting sword sect actually is very thoughtful. Running off to the Vermilion Bird territory to plunder the birth outline, indeed you have given this much thought. Ancestor Qianli of the Blooming Water Sword Sect chuckled coldly. The shifting sword sect originated from the Vermilion Bird territory. That place is somewhat more convenient to this sect, and neither does this sect wish to fight over the chests with friends, so as to injuring relations. Han Dan said, neither servile nor overbearing. Enough talk about this. We had better speak more on the matter of the others shrinking back when the time for battle came. A man sitting at the head coldly chuckled. His cultivation had unexpectedly reached supervoid early stage, and he spoke particularly forcefully, with each word like thunder. The man's lips were red and his teeth white, his demeanor distinguished and elegant. He wore a purple gold crown and was draped in a clear void most high robe. Those pupils were expressionless and apathetic. He was known as Envious of the East. Envious of the East's ice-cold gaze looked at the lifeless hall's ancestor Longevity, the heavenly ice holy palace's queen lady of ice, and the true immortals hall's Xian Zhenzi. His expression seemed to say, if it was not for your cold feet, then how could the purple thunder monster have prevailed? The three were all from great sects, and although their cultivation was somewhat lower, they were not afraid. Ancestor Longevity chuckled, the purple thunder monster had a lifeless pearl, so this school owed him a favor. Naturally, it has been returned. Who could have thought that the purple thunder monster would go confront Extreme Clarity? And who could have thought that Extreme Clarity would die? He indeed had a prehistoric spirit treasure. The Queen Lady of Ice even was disinclined to explain. Then, on what positions do the ladies and gentlemen participating in this Alliance of 10 conference stand? Envious of the East dully asked. His tone had a sort of indistinct pressure existing within it. Since the lifeless hall's favor has been returned, next time, we will naturally make haste to kill him. Ancestor Longevity stroked his beard, his tone certain. This purple thunder monster also is a star master. If we can root him out, that naturally is even better. Xian Zhenzi nodded and sighed in relief. He did not mind if the purple thunder monster were to die. Right. The Queen Lady of Ice nodded her head. This conduct of the purple thunder monsters that defied the natural order had already provoked everyone's anger. Regardless of whether they were thinking of their sects and disciples or if they were considering the star duels, if he did not die, this purple thunder monster was like a needle stuck inside the flesh, highly uncomfortable. But this purple thunder monster, they say, has ever-changing appearances and is very capable of altering his face. To find him will not be simple. The Red Lotus Fairy brooded. Ladies and gentlemen, have you all forgotten what the next phase is? Envious of the East coldly smiled. When he raised this, the cultivators present showed epiphanic expressions. The evil smiting hall of the Star Duel's third phase would have its curtain raised 1 month after the end of the Purple Star birth outline. Evil smiting writs would appear in both the Vermilion Bird territory and the Black Turtle territory. Only star masters that possessed the evil smiting writ could enter evil smiting hall to collect a star beast. If the purple thunder monster dared to even single-handedly fight for the purple star birth outline against the joined forces of multiple great sects, then he definitely would not miss this evil smiting hall. At that time, as long as their sect's people were in either of the 2 territories, then they could surely find the purple thunder monster. Although the purple thunder monster has countless appearances, there is a common characteristic, and that is Lin Chong. Envious of the East coldly laughed. Regardless of how he changes his appearance, this star general cannot. At the time Lin Chong appears, he will no longer be able to escape. Although the Crystal Dragon Palace will not participate in this chase to kill, they have already agreed to refine a secret treasure for me. 10. At that time, it will be impossible for him to escape, ha, ha. But there is a problem. The Black Turtle territory has innumerable devil cults, and the Vermilion Bird territory has different tribes everywhere. Those places are not within our domains. The Queen Lady of Ice opened her mouth. No matter. I will personally go speak with the Black Turtle Territory's #1 devil cult, the Devil Star Palace. In all likelihood, with such a powerful Star Master, even they would be very willing to collaborate with us. And the Vermilion Bird Territory, Headmaster Han Dan, we will attack with everything, but as for the other particulars, those will be left to the Shifting Flower Sword Sect. The Shifting Flower Sword Sect originated from the Vermilion Bird Territory, so this will not be problem, will it? Envious of the East was unquestionable. Han Dan nodded, only naturally, but for us to spend so much trouble on killing a single Star Master, would it not anger the Liangshan Maiden? She worriedly asked. The Liangshan Maiden? Fear her, my ass. Ancestor Qianli was discontent. If she has the capability, then just slaughter our 10 great sects already. Be at ease, Lin Chong provoked us first. It can be presumed that Liangshan Maiden is a heart clear as a mirror. Envious of the East pensively said. This is fine. Then, everyone again deliberated the details, with regards on how to arrange for the Star Master's entrance into the two territories, how they would contact each other, how they would station checkpoints leading to and from the Vermilion Bird Territory, etc. A frightening alliance unprecedented in history that was composed of the first-rate cultivators of the 10 great sects had been born. And at this time, our implicated person was currently immersed in controlling his sword chant. One day after he finished training, Su Xing sat down panting for breath. Su Xing, just what should we do about that Wusong? Shi Yuan looked at the cool and elegant beauty 100 meters away that had closed her eyes in meditation. Her tone was ill-humored. The thief star's nature had always been carefree and outspoken. Although the incident when Wu Xiao nearly killed Su Xing several days ago startled everyone, this made the thief star have negative feelings about her. Su Xing grabbed his hair, for he did not know what he should do either. How about you let Ying Mei go comfort her? Little sister Ying Mei certainly did break the harm star's heart. Wu Xinjie mockingly looked at Lin Ying Mei. Lin Ying Mei's expression was somewhat not too natural. That bold declaration last time was still vividly on her mind. Let alone that Wu Xiao had not yet recovered from the shock, the other sisters that had been with her were also surprised by the turn events. This was unexpected. What is there to comfort her about? Could it be she still has some thoughts about my woman? Su Xing tyrannically spoke, grabbing Lin Ying Mei's arm. Young master. Lin Ying Mei somewhat heated up in embarrassment, and the beauty laughed into her sleeve. 12. However, why is Wu Xiao this unwilling to accept that Ying Mei has signed a contract? She refers to herself as, your concubine, 13, so could it be she has some black history? Su Xing randomly guessed. Where did young lord hear that your concubine requires a contract? Has young lord not ever heard of this phrase? Wu Xinjie blinked. What does that mean? Your concubine means that she is unnamed, meaning a young girl that has not yet married, or that she has not yet obtained recognition, or that her current title has not been updated. Yan Yizhen explained. Could it be she wants to receive other people's recognition? The skillful star was also somewhat curious. No. Lin Ying Mei shook her head. It is only because Xiao does not want to let other men approach her that she favors referring to herself as your concubine. Everyone suddenly understood. So it turned out that she did not want other men to have any thoughts about her. However, this way of thinking was indeed a novelty. Wu Xiao abruptly rose. It was unknown whether or not she had sensed they had been chatting about her, but the woman walked this way. Su Xing, are you a man or not? Wu Xiao coldly said. Su Xing nearly blurted out that old, out-of-date line, you'll know if I'm a man or not in bed, but seeing as how Wu Xiao would probably go berserk hearing that, Su Xing countered with his own question, Wu Xiao, what do you want to say? If you are a man, then prove to your concubine that you have the qualifications to make Lin Ying Mei become your woman. Wu Xiao's eyes were very sharp, as if they were making one last struggle. Xiao. Hearing Wu Xiao so nakedly say that she was Su Xing's woman, Lin Yingmei could not help but somewhat blush. If this man cannot do so, then even if your concubine burns both jade and stone, she will fight you to the death. Wu Xiao said very firmly. Her words contained a courage that made people shiver. Su Xing actually somewhat had increasing admiration for this cool and elegant woman. He playfully smiled. Then what do you feel I should do in order for you to believe I have the qualifications to become Lin Yingmei's man? Is it to conquer you? Su Xing thought in evil delight. Very simple. Wu Xiao fixed her eyes on Su Xing. Her eyes had a brilliance that made others awed. She spoke, word by word, your concubine wants you alone to go obtain the evil smiting writ. Absolutely not. Su Xing had yet to reply when the other beauties rejected. Long Blood Stronghold had been reputed as the grounds of the Azure Dragon Territory's bloodiest massacre. For thousands of years, its wide expanse of land had buried the bones of countless heroes, up to the extent that flesh was whole inch of dirt. Red mist like a blaze burned, and in the distant 10 li, a huge fort was faintly discernible. It crawled in the red mist as if it was a gigantic beast waiting for the right opportunity to move, ready at any time to extend its fangs. The scarlet fog that seemingly sprayed from its mouth formed a kind of unbelievable landscape. Between breaths of stale and fresh air, there was a sort of pungent smell of blood that was taken in. On this day, a man and a woman appeared on a faraway hill. The man's appearance was very ordinary, belonging to that category that you would forget with just one glance, but the woman was the opposite as it turned out. Her figure was slim, bound in a long skirt and a cloak. Black and silver soft armor protected her body, and there was a long sword worn at her waist as well as divine moon phoenix shoes adorned the pilgrim's feet. Her silky long hair fluttered slowly in the breeze, thin strands of long silk. At a glance, it seemed to be floating in a stream of wind. The girl's complexion was also absolutely beautiful, her pupils cold and breathtaking. Clogged town building burned in fog. The man opened his mouth and exclaimed, what Xinjie said was right. This blood mist indeed is unbelievable. As expected, it burns like fire, and a personal look is even more stunning. The woman declined to respond to his outburst. She adjusted her collar and pursed her lips, but she said not a word. It's a pity I couldn't bring them along. The man said regretfully. Do you regret it? The woman finally spoke, her tone like a resonating flute in the wind. Isn't it nothing more than gathering a few devil-smiting writs? What could be so hard about that? Could it be you who is regretting this? Specially accompanying me on this trip, heh? The man spoke to the last somewhat with ridicule. This man and woman, without a doubt, was Su Xing and Wu Xiao gazing at the cold as ice and frost beauty beside him. Su Xing's thoughts could not help but return to a few days before. To that bet he made some days ago. Your servant wants you alone to go obtain the evil smiting writ. Absolutely not. Su Xing had yet to reply when the other beauties rejected. Wu Song, do not take a mile when we give an inch. Su Xing has been continuously patient with you only because he saw you and Yingmei are like sisters. Do not intolerably bully him. We act as Big Brother's star generals, how could we let Big Brother leave alone? Slave servant will not agree. All the girls initiated a scolding against Wu Xiao. Su Xing did not feel that flustered. On the contrary, he was currently pensive. Her looked at Wu Xinjie, and the latter was somewhat not completely fathomable. In actuality, Wu Xiao's wording did not necessarily strike upon Su Xing's compassion, and the reason was very simple. After the Purple Star Birth Outlines battle concluded, he was considered to have offended half of the major powers in the Azure Dragon territory. He could use his toe and still imagine that they must be in secret meetings to encircle, chase, obstruct and intercept him. From the strength he currently displayed, this series of tactics perhaps would not give the disciples a chance, but those ancestral monsters in secluded cultivation would certainly be attracted. After he obtained the miraculous Bodhi tree and the heaven-tearing sword, Su Xing was actually fearless. Even if he had no way to win, did he need to fear not being able to escape when he had the protection of the purple star jade pendant? However, Su Xing did not want to provoke too much trouble from the evil smiting hall's special nature. For this reason, he had already planned to take care of that evil smiting writ by himself, and now it seemed Lin Yingmei and Yan Yizhen still required several months of care to recover to perfect condition, not at all suitable for battle. Wu Xiao, you indeed are a bit unfair, Wu Xinjie said at this time. She had recalled a heavy point, and her eyes turned. Young Lord is but a star master. Since ancient times, when has a star master not have had a star general follow as closely as a shadow? Then what do you think is a bit fairer? Wu Xiao heard what the knowledge star's words indicated. Wu Xinjie covered her mouth and giggled, this is simple. Since Wu Xiao wants to verify young lord's character, why not accompany young lord for the journey together? On one hand, you can understand more deeply the man little sister has lifelong trust for, and on the other, little sister Wu Xiao's close as skin protection can let Yingmei relax. Everyone stared blankly. Ah! Let Wu Song. Sister Xinjie, what are you saying? Shi Yuan shouted. Wu Xiao's brows slightly wrinkled. She had a slightly meaningful smile, worthy of the resourceful star. All along you wanted your servant to protect him, that you would speak in such a pleasant manner, how could your servant possibly refuse? You and I will go together. Su Xing felt his teeth hurt. Although your servant cares not if you live or die, since this was a request your servant raised, what harm is there in going together with you? Your servant also wishes to experience just what capabilities could make someone devote herself to you. Wu Xiao's tone seemingly was somewhat unresigned. The other girls looked at each other in dismay, unable to find grounds to question the validity of this plan. Wu Xinjie knew that Wu Xiao would reply like this, and she was not at all surprised. However, since this is a bet, this long with each other needs to be a tad fairer. If young lord is able to obtain the evil smiting writ alone, then, Wu Xiao, what will you pay? Wu Xinjie's tone sunk, brimming with strictness. You want to make your servant pay something? Wu Xiao calmly said. Signing a contract looked to be not too possible, so Wu Xinjie said, how about you help us recover our star beasts? Sure. Wu Xiao instantly reacted. Slave servant cannot allow master to take risks alone. Yan Yizhen firmly said. Little E, could it be you still cannot be at ease? If those several demon smiting writs can't be done, then what more of the star duels is there to talk about? Su Xing shook his head, comforting her with a gentle tone, self-cultivate yourselves for the time being. 3 months should be enough. If something really does happen, I will use the jade pendant. But, little sisters, believe in young lord. Going to help young lord as we are now is contrarily somewhat not good to sort out. Wu Xinjie had no alternative, in addition, believe that little sister Xiao will properly protect Yingmei's husband. 2. The knowledge star secretly smiled. Wu Xiao's bet held nearly no disadvantages for Su Xing whatsoever. The evil smiting writ originally was not hard to collect, so even one person alone was not a problem. Furthermore, even if it really was obtained, what could Wu Xiao do? She generally could not truly believe she would be able to persuade Lin Yingmei. At that time, the evil smiting hall would be extremely dangerous, and he still needed to protect a too feeble to stand in the wind little whirlwind Chai Ling. If he had the Harm Star Pilgrim's help, at that time, it would be inevitably easy. All the girls naturally were bright and had also thought of the benefits of the situation, but to think of letting Su Xing face danger alone, it was hard for them to avoid being somewhat anxious. In the end, under Su Xing's comforting did they helplessly compromise. The smell here somewhat reeks of blood, Wu Xiao abruptly said. Su Xing returned to attention from his thinking. He sniffed with his nose, and there was a faint stench of blood. This is Long Blood's stronghold, so it's very normal. Sai Xing said. Long Blood Stronghold defended the entrance to the Vermilion Bird Territory's 10,000 Devils Mountain and Long Blood Canyon. In addition, this 10,000 Devils Mountain and Long Blood Canyon were both bloody places. There was close quarters fighting throughout the entire year, so an overly heavy ominous air was not strange. You really can choose locations. Wu Xiao seemed to not be very fond of places like this. Su Xing shrugged. Only the Black Turtle Territory and Vermilion Bird Territory have the evil smiting writ, and of the several entryways into the Vermilion Bird Territory, only this Long Blood Stronghold is the easiest. Before Su Xing came, he had already made his calculations. The Vermilion Bird and Azure Dragon territories shared a border with numerous mountain ranges, but if some were not dangerously layered, they were high beyond reach. Others were completely surrounded in dense fog, unable to be exited from. The sole checkpoint leading to the Vermilion Bird territory needed worry about the custody of the other sects, so this way, the Long Blood Stronghold was the optimal choice. One had a murderous aura too heavy. The Great Liang every day was recruiting cultivators and ordinary soldiers to resist the 100 Devils, and many cultivators filled with feelings of justice often would go on journeys, storming this 10,000 Devils mountain. Even if this place had great sect cultivators, it was unworthy of worry. Cultivators that came to Long Blood's stronghold were of many numbers, so finding him would not be that simple. Of course, the most important point was that Long Blood Canyon acted as a passage quite a number of cultivators opened up, where one could directly enter the center of a city in the Vermilion Bird Territory. As everyone knew, the Vermilion Bird Territory was a famous phoenix and owl in the same nest. Different clans were everywhere, with many varied mountain ranges, and its environment was incomparably dangerous. A little inattentiveness, and one could fall into an odd place and lose their life. To have a vantage point was greatly convenient regardless of how it was put. Let us go, those great sects seem unable to find you. Wu Xiao gazed into the distance, unable to see through the bloody mist. You thought of that? Su Xing was stunned, somewhat surprised as he spoke. Wu Xiao, you didn't deliberately make that bet with me because you were thinking of Yingmei, right? Carefully thinking, Wu Xiao ought to have known Su Xing's current situation. Lin Chong and the Purple Thunder Monster had been reputed as a great public hazard to the Azure Dragon territory. If Lin Yingmei were to rashly show herself at this moment, on the basis of the state that Yingmei and the rest had yet to recover, that definitely would bring about a drowning calamity. Thinking about, it was true. The evil smiting writ was very easy to collect, so even an earthly star general could do it without difficulty. For the current Su Xing, words were even more unnecessary. Su Xing suddenly smiled bitterly. Could it be said Xinjia's calculations already were within your own? To let Yingmei heal her wounds, she accompanied him to go obtain the evil smiting writ, and by means of the bet, she helped Lin Yingmei obtain her star beast. Given Wu Xiao and Lin Yingmei's relationship, it was not hard to deduce it was because of this. The corner of Wu Xiao's mouth slightly curved. She did not reply, but it could be seen that Su Xing's expectations were verified. Wu Xiao, you actually gave a lot of thought to this. Su Xing smiled. Lin Yingmei and Wu Xiao's tempers sure enough were opposite in some aspects. 3. Since Yingmei has chosen you, your servant naturally will honor her, but, Su Xing, you had best not make your servant disappointed. Wu Xiao icily said that, and then her cool and elegant back very quickly disappeared into the bloody mist. Seeing as how you are so intertwined, wouldn't it be better for us to sign a contract? Su Xing chuckled. Streaks of cold light in the bloody mist sliced the fog open, wiping past Su Xing's cheeks. As expected of the tiger fighting Wu Song, fierce. Su Xing thought. Long Blood Stronghold was an extremely large fortress city. The stronghold was just like an immense ring, divided into multiple barriers. The city walls were arranged with every sort of magic circle and mechanism. Each partition of the city walls had some small towns. It could even be said to be spectacular, and the centermost large city in the stronghold, Blood Knife City, supported both heaven and earth. Su Xing and Wu Xiao did not use riding sword flight. Using flight in the vicinity of the stronghold was an easy way to be regarded as a target and shot down. This would be unrecoverable, so all cultivators would voluntarily land when nearing the fort. That's— Su Xing suddenly turned his gaze to the sky and froze. What? Wu Xiao raised her eyebrows. Nothing. Just now, it seems I saw a dragon in the clouds. Gongsun Sheng fly directly by. Su Xing blinked. Is that so? Wu Xiao did not feel this was a surprise at all. If star generals wanted to have a star beast, they would need to have an evil smiting writ. It was inevitable that dragon in the clouds Gongsun Sheng would go to the vermilion bird territory to find the evil smiting writ. If we can run into her, then I must thank her. Su Xing nodded and smiled. After entering Long Blood's stronghold, the blood mist faded by a great degree. There were cultivators and soldiers patrolling everywhere inside the fort. Countless secret gazes stared at any visitors, and Su Xing and Wu Xiao received attention the moment they entered. Su Xing's galaxy early-stage cultivation could not count as astonishing, but in this place, it was considered top quality. Star generals could disguise their star energy, so Wu Xiao appeared to be galaxy late stage. Because Long Blood Canyon brimmed with a murderous aura at every step, Su Xing was not in any rush at all to enter. After passing by 3 layers of city walls, they arrived at the stronghold center area within, Blood Knife City. There was an aesthetically pleasing and crowded bazaar, and the majority of people had fluctuating presences and circulating star energies. Because Long Blood Canyon led directly to the Vermilion Bird territory, it was for this reason that Long Blood's stronghold often had cultivators assemble. Unwittingly, it had developed into a base for cultivators. Let's first ask around to gather intelligence, see how many sects are here. Afterwards, we go find a queue to enter Long Blood Canyon. What do you say? Su Xing asked. Wu Xiao grunted, do the work-yourself manner. Su Xing strolled a circle inside the city before finally climbing to the Xuanyang restaurant's 3rd floor. When he and Wu Xiao appeared, there was bound to be many of those sorts of amazed expressions. However, these people could only swallow down their saliva when they saw the two's cultivations, for they were very aware of the gazes they received. Su Xing found a windowside seat, sat down and ordered several bottles of fine wine. From this position, he could see the towering city walls and the entrance to Long Blood Canyon. A little farther, and there was somewhat of a dense, blood-red color. As Su Xing drank wine, his vision was like an accurate electronic measuring device that sized up everything about Long Blood Canyon's exterior. The arrangements of all the personnel, the numbers of cultivators, and their cultivations were all placed into his gaze one after the other. Seeing him enter concentration, Wu Xiao did not disturb him. Without asking him for permission, she poured herself some wine, and drank until her lips and teeth permeated with the fragrance of alcohol. A moment later, Su Xing put away his gaze and pensively nodded. Interesting, this place is being monitored by the other sects, as expected. Then are you preparing to give up this path? Wu Xiao nonchalantly asked. Entering a bit later is fine. Su Xing paused. He asked, Wu Xiao, can I ask you a question? Wu Xiao's brows slightly wrinkled. How do you view these star duels? Your servant Herding may say that you do not intentionally erase other enemies at all. Wu Xiao pensively said. However, sooner or later, you will do so. There are some matters that you cannot avoid, regardless of what you believe. Su Xing laughed. As the two chatted, the sound of cheers suddenly echoed inside the shop. Daoist Ho, too, what story should you tell us this time? We have waited very long for you. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Quickly give us a chat about the matter of the Blood Shadow Elder Devil. 3. Everyone that was originally carefreely drinking wine each shouted in excitement. The loudness of the noise made each of the guards face a powerful foe. Su Xing and Wu Xiao could not help but curiously look over. They saw a pointy-mouthed, monkey-cheeked old man wearing a thin mustache, 5, slowly sway as he walked onto a platform. His popularity in Long Blood Stronghold was not bad, and let alone cultivators appearing on scene, a few soldiers and high-ranking officers also shouted. Only when Su Xing asked did he realize that this old Taoist was named Taoist Ho, who specialized in storytelling. His words were eloquent, his tongue a splitting water lily, a deluge of heavenly flowers. Despite this elder Taoist being only Stardust late stage, he was extremely good at inquiring through the grapevine. He somewhat heard of each major secret in the 800 li of the Long Blood Stronghold and the 10,000 li of Gun Province. 6. Although the validity was unknown, he spoke clearly and logically, making the truth hard to distinguish from the rumors. With the Azure Dragon territory so vast and communications so undeveloped, this Taoist Ho's stories became an absolute in Long Blood Stronghold. On one hand, listening was pleasant, and on the other, the circumstances could more or less be understood. Last time, I told that the Blood Shadow Elder Devil unified 100 Devil Mountains 10 great demon kings and led millions of different clans of demonic soldiers. They assaulted Long Blood Stronghold, and at that time, the rivers truly ran with blood and corpses littered the fields. The entire Long Blood Fortress blood chi rushed into the skies, able to be smelled from 1,000 li away. The great Liang dynasty's millions of elite troops and countless hundreds of thousands of cultivators were no match. Only the all-out assault of the Emperor Liang's chief royal cultivator, the 9 Dragons Heavenly Master, 7, stationed at the fort, finally delayed them long enough for the alliance of each of the great sects to arrive, dissolving the crisis. This bloody war could be said to be seen once every 100 years. The Supervoid Stage 9 Dragons Heavenly Master not only fell, but that purple star grade astral treasure, the 9 Dragons Cauldron, 8, also went missing, causing worried sighs and gasps. Furthermore, the 100 Devils Mountains losses were also disastrous. The Blood Shadow Elder Devil even more had been struck into a heavily wounded state, relying on the Blood Fiend Spectre Escape, 9, to flee a calamity of his own. Threatening to pay back his blood enemy in 10 years. The Taoist Ho's speech was excited. Now, the 10-year deadline has already come and gone. It seems that whence the Blood Shadow Elder Devil died is unknown. Although sometimes the 100 Devils Mountain still has some demon kin continuously attack Long Blood, they no longer have the bravery and ferocity of those days. The location of that 9 Dragons Cauldron is unknown. A big man curiously asked. Right, that is but a purple star grade astral treasure. Another female cultivator also nodded in agreement. From any perspective, a purple star grade astral treasure was even more likely than a prehistoric spirit treasure was to make people yearn for it. Although the two types of magic weapons could be used by cultivators, the former was much more easily used than the spirit treasure. Prehistoric spirit treasures often shook the skies and moved the earth when they appeared, but without shocking magic energy to support it, it was simply hard to display an effect. Legend has it that it has fallen into the Vermilion Bird territory. Each of the great sects have searched, but they always are unable to locate its whereabouts. The Taoist Ho evilly smiled. If a star general obtained this astral treasure, even an earthly star could defeat a heavenly star. Speaking of the fiend stars, Taoist Ho, I wonder if you know about the purple thunder monster. Su Xing had been slowly listening and suddenly heard someone say this. Su Xing curiously glanced over. It was a white-clothed youth with a fair appearance. At first glance, he was somewhat more beautiful than a woman. On his person, Su Xing sensed a sort of indescribable star energy. The purple thunder monster, ha! Ha, ha, that truly is a star master seen once in a millennium. Taoist Ho made a display of mystery. Everyone impatiently urged him on. The Taoist Ho rapped the table to silence them. Su Xing snickered when this man put on airs, and then he heard Taoist Ho say, "They say that the one who has contracted the majestic star panther head is an ill omen everywhere and very mighty." In the purple star birth outline, he alone stayed behind to confront the 10 great sects as well as more than 10 star masters. Not only did he obtain this birth treasure outline, he escaped unscathed. Reportedly, each of the great sects' top-notch secluded cultivators have already issued a chase to kill. Just what is the background of this purple thunder monster? He has practically offended all of the powers in the Azure Dragon territory. His background must be very great. It cannot be said for certain that he is that terrifying star master of the Devil Star Palace. That holy lord of draconic demon that defeated Xie Zhenyuan. Although the holy lord of draconic demon is powerful, he is the heavenly underworld sex star master. The Devil Star Palace is but the Black Turtle Territory's #1 great devil palace. This heavenly underworld sect receives reverence and respect, but how can it compare? Legend says that Devil Star Palace's master is known as the Great Saint Starkiller, 10, quite outstanding. This generation of star duels truly is a suddenly changing and unstable situation, and the Black Turtle Territory surprisingly has such a frightening monster. TSK. Our Azure Dragon Territory's Xie Zhenyuan indeed is rubbish. I hear his star general is very incompetent as well. I see that the Azure Dragon Territory still has a chance with Princess Ling Yan and Yen Wudao. The Vermilion Bird Territory's Lady Snake Scorpion, 11, is reportedly also a formidable character. Though her cultivation is not high, she has captured 2 great supercluster stage demon kings. I think that will not do. It is said that what the Great Saint Starkiller practices is a transforming star of annihilation, great supreme grade devil force. TSK, this is a genuine monster. When Su Xing heard this, he could not help but be shocked. Transforming stars of annihilation were legends in Liangshan. Cultivation methods of this grade had appeared only once before in the Crystal Dragon Palace's treasure feast. News in this checkpoint adjacent to the border of 2 territories developed much faster than in-country, as expected. All the cultivators present traveled extensively, and they had often moved about in the Vermilion Bird Territory and Black Turtle Territory. Su Xing also heard a lot of useful information. Su Xing had encountered the Holy Lord of Draconic Demon once before. Indeed, he was as tyrannical as the rumors said, but that Great Saint Starkiller and Lady Snake Scorpion were somewhat unfamiliar. However, it seemed these 2 were distinguished as the strongest star masters of the Black Turtle and Vermilion Bird territories. In addition, they were strong to that sort of abnormal level. In the Azure Dragon territory, Su Xing using Nebula Stage to kill a Galaxy Middle Stage cultivator had always been amazing, but hearing that Lady Snake Scorpion had already killed Supervoid rank cultivators, if she did not possess some incredible magic weapon, then she was actually somewhat unfathomable. However, the so-called Bagua mostly was categorized as something that became more exaggerated the more it was disseminated, such that it was unknown how much its power was overstated. Everyone erupted into discussion. When the Daoist Ho saw he had been somewhat neglected, he cleared his throat and shouted, "This old Daoist has another story to give everyone a listen today." What? Ha. Seeing that all eyes had been attracted to him, Daoist Ho chuckled. He brushed his thin mustache and said, "The harm star Wusong has successfully obtained her star beast this time. This was already known. It seems she even eliminated a sect, something called the Sun whatever. The 9 Suns sect. Right, that one. The harm star is worthy of being the last generation's hegemon, how awesome. But what this Daoist reports is not this at all. They say that Wusong took the white and black unicorn to go plunder the purple star birth outline this time, and had been locked onto by the extreme clarity elder immortal." Daoist Ho looked around his surroundings. Pleased with himself, he said, "Wusong and Lin Chang's master joined hands to eliminate the extreme clarity elder immortal, stealing his spirit treasure." Everyone laughed, showing they had already known this. "But you do not know what happened afterwards, do you?" Elder Daoist Ho rubbed his nose, flaunting the climax. "What was there afterwards?" that handsome youth asked. Wu Song also signed a contract with this purple thunder monster. Su Xing went pfff, spraying out his drink, and Wu Xiao wrinkled her brow. Su Xing whispered his apologies. He stared in amazement at that elder Taoist Ho, for the elder Taoist Ho's words stirred everyone into an uproar, turned them pale. Wu Song has also contracted. Of course. Lin Chong and Wu Song have always had a very good relationship, and with the purple thunder monster this overbearing, what is strange about them signing a contract? Elder Taoist Ho said. I do not believe you. How could the previous generation's overlord possibly sign a contract? Lin Chong has signed. What is so odd about Wu Song signing one? Everyone again began debating, and each issued their own experience. The more they spoke, the more irregular they were. Just as Su Xing was about to look at how Wu Xiao reacted, at this time, he found the girl had already left her seat and walked to the front of a slab of jade. Her whole body was rigid, as if she had been mesmerized by something. When Su Xing saw Wu Xiao apparently was somewhat intrigued, he curiously walked over. What is it? Following Wu Xiao's cool and elegant pupils, Su Xing saw there was a qijue on the jade board. However, when he saw the content of that qijue, Su Xing could not help but be shaken. This is, he saw written upon it thus. I ask myself, the Emperor of Spite often thinking of sisters once so close he someday visits the sky-supporting mountain certain to destroy that 1,000-year joke. I ask myself, the Emperor of Spite often thinking of sisters once so close he someday visits the sky-supporting mountain certain to destroy that 1,000-year joke. These words were written very vividly and powerfully, appearing like the flower hairpin of a beautiful woman. This seemed to be penned by the style of a well-bred young lady. This sky-supporting mountain must be referring to Maiden Mountain. Certain to destroy that 1,000-year joke, Su Xing felt that the woman who wrote this was actually quite aggressive. Could it be that this 1,000-year joke referred to the nearly 1,000 years of star duels? The signature below was Song, making others unable to help but think of a certain person. 2. Wu Xiao's eyes slightly squinted, fixing her eyes silently on this qijue. Dear guests, this jade steel is specialized in verse. For only a yang of gold, do dear guests want to leave behind an eternal good name? A waiter walked forward and laughed. Who wrote this? Wu Xiao expressionlessly asked. Oh, this was written by a young lady. The waiter said. This happened half a year ago already. What did she look like? Su Xing also asked. The waiter showed an odd expression, beautiful. Truly beautiful, as if she had walked out of a painting. Right, at that time, there was also an elegant young lord that inscribed a verse. Because of this, he pointed below. Written upon it. 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors seek Wei Yang, here of women gracefully compete against snow. Their brows like misty green mountain scenes, restrained tender whispers aromatically fill the courtyard. Heave deep sighs into the night sky, the beauty's flowery partition in the clouds. Wish for descended reincarnation 3,000 times, only for the sake of a beauty's fragrance. 3. Signed, Lu Tianya. Su Xing thought, fuck, this Lu Tianya is a talented scholar. It seemed that girl was truly boundlessly charming. The so-called Weiyang was also called Weiyang Palace. 5. In the myths of Liangshan's palaces, legend had it that when Xian Nu fell into the mundane world, she resided in this palace. To compare her with fallen dignitaries showed indeed that nothing more could be said. Who else has seen the poem upon this? Wu Xiao inquired, brimming with a rare curiosity. Probably 4 or 5. The most recent was a month ago when an exquisite and graceful, 6, girl took a look. She seemed to have also said something about it being interesting, the waiter respectfully answered. Exquisite and graceful. Wu Xiao mumbled to herself. She also inscribed a verse, vanity in star energy becomes singular, arrogance disallows injury to pride, like subdued dragons in shallow waters, dripping blood looking into the blue sky, misfortune gathers in opposite of righteousness, timely rain sow the kernels of fear, what time seemingly records passions of then, Liang Shan little sisters are as before. Signed, Hua. This jade steel was a well-known scene at Xuanyang restaurant. When the blood shadow elder devil originally fought, Emperor Liang gazed at the boundless blood and wrote, "Destroy soldiers and split armor and kill with bloodthirst," a picture of the landscape of 10,000 li of slaughter. From then on, many somewhat refined cultivators, regardless of whether or not they had the talent or ability, were willing to leave behind a few words. This jade steel was carved with star energy, and star cultivators with insufficient force often could not stay for long. Su Xing glanced at the inscriptions of that girl named Song and Lu Tianya. The former was flexible and graceful yet did not lose the air of a phoenix dancing through the ninth heaven. That Lu Tianya also carved very beautifully. That Hua's inscription had her intent permeate the steel, her skill deep and resounding, vaguely with a tyrannical conceit. This was the so-called seeing words that were like the person, where three types of entirely different personalities appeared vividly before them. "Do you want to write one?" Su Xing said when he saw her this curious. Wu Xiao twitched her mouth. Though appeared uninterested, she returned the invitation. "Since you can have little Yi services, you should have some talent. It would be better for you to inscribe one. A limerick should do." Su Xing chuckled. "Oh." Wu Xiao revealed a trace of interest. "All right, since the beauty bears passion, then your servant presents his inadequacy." Su Xing really had some ideas. However, though he flaunted himself, he knew how serious the situation was right now. Originally, he wanted to write a few phrases: "The whole city will be clothed in golden armor." 8. "This land so rich in beauty has made countless heroes bow in homage." 9. These sorts of aggressive and awe-inspiring verses that would make Wu Xiao have a new level of respect for him. Thinking about it, it was better to forget about it. Stolen talent always gave rise to a somewhat guilty conscience. 10. Looking at that far-off mountain in red mist, then looking back at Song's Qijue, he had inspiration. He turned over a liang of gold, and condensing a bit of star energy onto his finger, he began carving. Although it was not as magnificent as the others, but for a first work, it was just right. What Su Xing wrote was also very short, a measly 20 characters. "Blood mist has 3,000, breaking the world's fated marriage. When I suddenly turn around, a dream buries a millennium." Wu Xiao slowly read. Her tone had an indescribable softness. "This young lord is thorough, an honest match made in heaven with that, certain to destroy that 1,000-year joke." The waiter praised. The corner of Wu Xiao's mouth curved, showing a very shallow smile. "You actually quite understand her. How poetic, how wet." 11. A voice suddenly praised. Su Xing saw that white-clothed handsome youth had already approached. Seeing Su Xing's literary ability, he added more praise. "This fellow used few brushstrokes yet set an extraordinary tone. When I suddenly turn around, a dream buries a millennium, truly says it all about long blood strongholds' bitter struggles. Fellow, this is undeserved praise." Such bare praise made Su Xing feel a bit embarrassed. "Your servant is Fang Xiangu." 12. Brother Su Xing is not only poetic, his skill also makes your servant thus admire. Fang Xiangu was like those people that acted as if he were an old friend even though they had only met. Having only seen Su Xing write, he already started to call themselves brothers. "I wonder what fellow's wife is called." Fang Xiangu made Su Xing amused. He unexpectedly thought that Wu Xiao was Su Xing's wife, and this could not be blamed on his misunderstanding. A man and woman coming together to a border region without adorning a sex robes, that result naturally had to be a husband and wife or such. In addition, at first glance, their relationship was somewhat close, so it was hard to avoid stirring the imagination of others. Although no matter how they looked, Wu Xiao's cool elegance and that ordinary appearance of Su Xing after a smile was a flower stuck who knows where. Wu Xiao wrinkled her brow, disdaining to explain. "My wife is Xiao." Su Xing thought for a moment. Using this identity was just enough to be able to conceal the attention of those sections. Do you have some business? Wu Xiao somewhat slowly interrupted. Fang Xinggu said, you too must be going to the Vermilion Bird territory? Your servant is currently seeking fellows traveling to the Vermilion Bird territory. We can look after each other in a party. I wonder if you two are willing. The Vermilion Bird territory's geniuses were too many to count. The Azure Dragon territory's cultivators often would go to the Vermilion Bird territory to test themselves, especially for the Scattered Star cultivators, who felt strongly about this place. However, the Vermilion Bird's tribes were dangerous. Setting out on a journey alone would very easily make them targets, so most cultivators would form groups to go on the road. Su Xing had also thought of finding a party to blend in with in order to fool people, so as to avoid arousing the attention of the other great sects. Pondering over and over, he prudently asked, I wonder what sort of people are in the group. They are Scattered Star cultivators, much like brother Su Xing. Besides going to the Vermilion Bird territory to seek out a few geniuses, they also wished to find some of the clans from 100 Devil's Mountain. The stronghold always offered bounties, and a tribesman could be exchanged for a pill and 100 liang of gold. A general could be exchanged for a top-notch artifact, and a demi-king, You can be offered an imperial throne, 13, by Emperor Liang. Fan Xiangu slightly laughed. Although these rewards held no appeal to Su Xing, as far as Scattered Star cultivators were concerned, these were rather enticing, particularly for 100 Devil's Mountain tribesmen. To kill one would probably be like pinching an ant to death, and as for the imperial throne, that was the great Liang's offering to a high-ranking character. They could not do without gold, pills, artifacts and magic weapons. However, that demi-king was a mountain's overlord. Their abilities were very powerful, and to be able to kill something the grade of a demi-king, perhaps wealth would be snubbed at. At most, that imperial throne was not bad. Su Xing remembered details of Emperor Liang's thrones that Wu Xinjie discussed. This great Liang dynasty's imperial throne, star cultivators numbered more than 100. Then good. Su Xing nodded. Then meet at the stronghold's eastern gate tonight. Fang Xiangu smiled. To be able to bring Su Xing's husband and wife, fake, galaxy stage cultivation into the group, that was even more safe. A resounding bugle broke the restaurant's atmosphere, cutting the mood apart raw. Everyone froze, crowding one after another towards the windowsill, looking into the distance. On the plains outside of Long Blood Canyon, the blood mist dispersed, and a group of strange people clad in iron armor and hefting broadswords and axes walked out. Their foreheads had long and black demon horns, and their eyes were seemingly like copper bells. They sucked blood in their mouths, something extremely terrifying. It is the evil spirit clan of the 100 Devils Mountain's evil spirit mountain range. That damned tribe. Everyone was astonished when they saw this. These people raised the heads of several cultivators, men and women. The leading male shouted, Great King Devil Mask, 14, has spoken. It was the Great King who opened this road, the Great King who planted this tree, and if the Azure Dragon Territory's cultivators wished to pass through this gate, use your lives to buy it. The evil spirit clansmen threw the heads in their hands. Their strength was greatly shocking, for these seemingly slack heads that were like boulders suddenly showed malicious expressions, rushing towards the walls of the stronghold. Several guarding soldiers were bit apart by the heads the moment they touched. This was the evil spirit clan's fiend magic, head curse. The evil spirit clan laughed aloud. More than a dozen heads filled the sky, biting whatever they saw. The stronghold's bows and arrows and magic simply could not stop them. All the cultivators had seemingly been baffled, each attacking with riding swords. Just at this time, a sudden burst of flame shot out. This flame was extremely gorgeous, like a lotus flower ignited to the limit. Several dozen heads were burned cleanly away in the blink of an eye, and those evil spirit cultivators wanted to run when they saw this. Red lotus flames blossomed in their surroundings, burning away the red mist. The evil spirit cultivators screamed. Red Lotus Karma Fire. 16. It is the Red Lotus Fairy. The cultivators shouted in shock, filled with reverence. Flames suddenly condensed and dispersed. A woman beautiful as a goddess seemingly descended into the world, as if washed by the flames. Her cloud bun was lofty, inclined against her head. Her body was draped in red muslin, and those fingers were white as peeled scallions. Her red lips were full, the pace of her slender legs delicate. She was incomparably exquisite in this world, but what made Su Xing feel shocked was that this woman stepped barefoot onto the red lotuses. The petals of those lotus flowers burned with the color of flames, extraordinary to the extreme. The tiny evil spirits dared to be impudent. This red lotus fairy's voice was like something refined. Those two red pupils stared, and a lotus flower blaze rolled away the red mist. Those evil spirits immediately were burned to slags, and only one evil spirit outside of the red lotus fairy's magic was left with his life as a favor. Looking at this woman of karmic fire, that man shuddered and crawled on the ground. The vermilion bird territory honored the strong, and this red lotus fairy's cultivation unexpectedly was at the peak of supercluster stage. No wonder the evil spirit tribe would revere her as a monster. Return and inform that great King Devil Mask. This immortal will take his life in a few days. The red lotus fairy coldly spoke. The evil spirit man nodded in fright, turned around and escaped into the fog. The red lotus fairy harumphed. She turned her head to look around, and the other cultivators promptly lowered their gazes. A supercluster peak cultivator's eyes were enough to make their minds entirely break down. Smiling, yet not, the red lotus fairy tread onto a red lotus karma fire and escaped into Long Blood Canyon, as if the red mist along the road had been ripped apart. I never thought the divine flame sword sect's red lotus fairy would also come. Indeed, seeing is believing. This red lotus karma fire has perhaps reached the transforming realm. It seems the purple thunder monster's doom is truly at hand this time. Fang Xiangu sighed with some pity. Supercluster peak cultivators mainly were in secluded cultivation. To show themselves, often there would be some important objective. The red lotus fairy was once revered as the divine flame sword sect's ancestral master. In addition, legend had it that this red lotus karma fire was even the supreme grade secret technique of the red lotus immortals sect of the ancient great sect, Nine Dragons Great Sect. The purple thunder monster's purple mansion immortals thunder, 17, could not contend against it. Wu Xiao unenthusiastically glanced at Su Xing, regretting can still be done if it is right now. Su Xing shrugged and made fun of her. Wife, with you by my side, what does husband have anything to regret about? Although he said this, his eyes still flashed a dignified expression. Wu Xiao did not care how quick this man was with his tongue, yet she profoundly smiled. The night was cool as water. Su Xing and Wu Xiao hurried to the stronghold's east gate. Spotting a crowd, Su Xing was somewhat surprised. This Fang Xiangu had unexpectedly assembled close to 100 cultivators. Most of their cultivations were at Nebula Middle Stage and Late Stage, with 4 or 5 of them being Galaxy Stage. Brother Su Xing, ha, ha. To able to see you come truly makes your servants so happy. Fang Xiangu was in the plaza, just so happening to be in a chat with a man and woman. When he saw Su Xing appear, he happily went to welcome Su Xing. This is a lot of people. Su Xing smiled. His gaze landed on that pair. From their outward appearances, these two were very young. The girl's petite face had slight dimples, and the boy was firm and might. The girl was Galaxy Early Stage while the boy's cultivation had reached Galaxy Middle Stage. They did not seem to be Star Masters. After the birth outline passed, Star Masters would enter the Vermilion Bird territory, so Su Xing had no choice but to be mindful. These two are Su Xing and his wife. Fang Xiangu introduced them to everyone. The 100 cultivators present showed astonished expressions as they stared at Wu Xiao's fully stunning appearance. Although Wu Xiao was wrapped up in a cloak that covered her wonderful figure, that naturally cool and elegant temperament still made people feel stifled. There was no lack of some of them praising her beauty under their breath. However, Wu Xiao's galaxy stage cultivation was sufficient to make them fearful. Sensing the iciness that Wu Xiao emitted, the rest of the cultivators instinctively maintained a certain distance. Su Xing was cheerfully idle. "Can we go now?" that galaxy middle stage male cultivator said, somewhat annoyed. "Your servant's little sister has a small matter, she will arrive very soon," Fang Xiangu apologetically said. Just as he said that, an elegant and supple young maiden of budding beauty walked towards here. When she appeared, the originally somewhat restless and dissatisfied cultivators promptly sunk into tranquility. They stared fixedly on that girl. That girl was approximately 15 or 16 years old. Her figure was exquisite, her hair white as snow. She wore a large-sleeved ash-gray hanfu, and those sleeves were embroidered with golden chrysanthemums blooming in the clouds. Barefooted, those eyes swirled and twinkled. The girl appeared to be considerably charming, but her cultivation was not high, at only nebula late stage. "Yanran, just a bit further," Fang Xiangu called out. He introduced her. "This is your servant's younger cousin, 2, Zheng Yanran." 3. "Cousin, you are so amazing, finding a great beauty." Upon the corner of the girl's mouth hung a completely unafraid smile, looking alarmed at Wu Xiao. Wu Xiao's eyes slightly narrowed, and she stared at the girl. "This is Su Xing and his wife, do not cause them trouble," Fang Xiangu admonished her. "Wow, I really envy you, to be able to marry such a beautiful older sister." Zhen Yanran giggled, very lively. The originally discontent people could not help but greatly relax. A moment later, seeing that the night was deep, Su Xing did not want to chat for too much longer. He released a flying sword, and gave Wu Xiao a teasing smile. "Wife, come aboard." Wu Xiao harumphed, then fell onto the flying sword. The others, looking somewhat enviously at Su Xing, each released their flying swords and riding swords for flight. "Cousin, can Yanran go together with elder sister?" Zhen Yanran said with longing. "Do not bother the married couple." Fang Xiangu shook his head and also let out a flying sword. Zheng Yanran pitifully twitched her lips and stepped onto the flying sword. The 100 cultivators then flew towards Long Blood Canyon. Bright and multicolored sword light concentrated together and emitted a terrifying might. The scent of blood rolled over and over in Long Blood Canyon. Boundless mountains linked into one. Legend had it that this 10,000 Devils Mountain had 99 peaks, and the most bloodthirsty sinister tribe dwelling in the Vermilion Bird territory were known as the 10,000 Devils. Along the road leading to the Vermilion Bird territories, 5 Colors City, 5, it could be said this Long Blood Canyon had great danger everywhere. On both ends of the 10,000 Devils Mountain, spying silhouettes appeared in great numbers, but seeing the enormous amount of cultivators, they timidly retreated. Some tribal cultivators with a death wish that secretly wanted to mount a sneak attack had been contrarily killed neatly by the galaxy cultivators using their sword chance. They had been instead turned into the cultivators' spoils of war. In their capacity as the cultivators with the highest cultivations, Su Xing and Wu Xiao were at the very front of the procession. After penetrating 1,000 li deep, the canyon's increasingly gloomy and encroaching black clouds blocked the moonlight. In the surroundings was a haze, and the shadows of trees swayed as an evil wind gusted. I hear this evil spirit clan will often lay traps to encircle and wipe out cultivators. Are we not taking a bit of a risk? A cultivator was somewhat afraid. There is no need to worry. Did you not see that Senior Red Lotus Fairy wants to take Demi-King Devil Masks, 6, life? Another cultivator disapproved. With the Red Lotus Fairy opening the path, now was simply a great opportunity to enter the Vermilion Bird territory. Even if that demonic King Devil Mask were any stronger, could he outdo the Red Lotus Karma Fire? And I fear that Red Lotus Fairy is deliberately deceiving us. A Galaxy middle stage male cultivator's voice sunk. Ha, how could that be? They were unwilling to believe this. When they entered an empty area in the canyon, everyone halted. They saw the corpses of tribesmen and cultivators scattered everywhere along the ground, their blood flowing together as a river. The cultivators' heads had all already disappeared without a trace. This place has traps, quickly leave. Su Xing shouted when he saw this. Everyone hastily accelerated their escape speed. There was a bellow, and the canyon suddenly erupted with a demon's cry. Several hundred demonic laughs suddenly resounds, and with a shuffle, 100 plump heads from all directions changed into specters that shot over. This was the evil spirit clan's head curse. Everyone had anticipated this. Their hands clenched flying swords, artifacts, and talismans that were activated and attacked. 100 sword lights twisted and interweaved, destroying several dozen of the heads. A shrill shout abruptly tore apart the night. It was I who opened this mountain, I who planted this tree. If you want to pass this road, leave your heads behind. An evil chill attacked their whole bodies, and a ghostly howl sounded suddenly from the surroundings. An evil wind whooshed, blowing such that people could not open their eyes. All the cultivators' expressions changed, for it was the Demi-King. The Vermilion Bird Territory's so-called Demi-Kings were classified as clan chiefs. Their cultivations were supercluster stage at the minimum, and hearing the Demi-King's voice, these people became panicked. At this time, the evil winds suddenly blew stronger, turning the 100 heads to more than 1,000 that fell like a downpour. The evil wind turned even stronger, and cultivators with slightly lower cultivations were blown away in the blink of an eye. The 100 cultivators' formation had been instantly dissolved. Leave behind your heads. An intense voice filled with complacency. Ah, we have been tricked by the Red Lotus Fairy. Run away, quickly. All the cultivators shouted in confusion. The Galaxy Stage cultivators used their sword chant abilities, turned their flying swords into arrays and evasions, carving out a bloody path. They were unwilling to throw away their lives alongside a crowd of Nebula Stage cultivators. These people had nothing to do with them anyways, so leaving them behind to act as targets was good. Su Xing at this moment did not care about this. The evil wind and head curse that the evil spirit clan used turned stronger and stronger, and their cultivators were more and more in numbers. Su Xing spread out his divine intent, immediately attacking towards the Demon King. Several dozen li away, Demi-King Devil Mask suddenly sensed a divine intent. His heart shook, and he instantly saw 2 cultivators. When he saw Su Xing was only Galaxy Stage, he instantly sneered, "Your head is best used for this king's heart-devouring heads array." 100 heads screamed and opened their big mouths, biting at Su Xing. "As per our agreement in advance, your servant indeed will not assist you." Wu Xiao had an aloof manner. "How could I need to trouble wife with this sort of small matter?" Su Xing chuckled. "I never thought Ingmei would unexpectedly like a lecher such as yourself." Wu Xiao finally could not bear it. Su Xing laughed. Taking liberties with this icy beauty would feel rather good. Unexpectedly flirting before this king. Demi-King Devil Mask was 3 zhang tall, his demon horn prominent. He struck a seal, and the heads became a black wind that rolled towards Su Xing. Su Xing grunted, extending a finger. 12 golden swords suddenly revealed themselves, shining with sparkling golden light that brightly lit the dark night. Under Su Xing's control, heaven-tearing sword light seemingly formed a huge net at high speeds around his body. Demon King Devil Mask's heart-devouring head curse had been struck down into disorder and disarray. That terrifying black chi was easily slashed in half the moment it touched heaven-tearing sword chi. Heaven-tearing was but forged from the heaven-tearing gold dragon scales. How could their spiritual powers and sword tips be resisted by these heads? The sword chant rushed. The 12 heaven-tearing golden swords sparkled as they floated in the air. What are these flying swords? Demi-King Devil Mask shouted. Flying swords that want your life. Su Xing sneered, and a light flashed inside his eyes. The heaven-tearing swords cried with a dragon's roar, piercing through the wind. A galaxy stage cultivator dares to be pretentious before this king. Demi-King Devil Mask yelled, and his demon horn shot out a bolt of black light the thickness of a water bucket. The golden light alternated. It cut down this black light. Demi-King Devil Mask had yet to come to his senses when the 12 heaven-tearing swords suddenly pounced down like a golden dragon. Sire! The other evil spirit clan demon soldiers shouted in fear. Demi-King Devil Mask showed an overwhelmed expression, and his body suddenly fell to pieces, dying just like that. Those demon soldiers looked as if they had seen a monster, screaming and fleeing. Su Xing only sent a glance, and golden light scattered in every direction. Within the night, golden light glinted, and blood-curdling screams rang incessantly. In the blink of an eye, the cries were cut short. Indeed, it deserves to be called an immemorial sword chant. Wu Xiao coldly chuckled. Su Xing smiled. Originally, he had thought of going back, but he reconsidered. Since they had already entered the Vermilion Bird territory undercover, there was no need to. Moreover, with the Demon King's death, the remainders were small bandits not worth mention. Those people were cultivators that experienced life or death, and thinking it over, Su Xing raised the flying sword and flew towards the depths of the canyon. Fang Xiangu took Zheng Hanyan forward under cover of the forest, his face nervous and cautious, a contrast to the girl, who actually was very indifferent in expression. She looked at Fang Xiangu, engrossed. Ghostly howls blocked his path forward. Several evil spirit clan demon soldiers yelled loudly, raising the weapons in their hands as they attacked. Fang Xiangu consecutively killed several demon soldiers when suddenly, a head bit onto his soldier. His body was promptly sliced by a sword. Seeing that their objective was injured, the evil spirit clan demon soldiers became excited, using the fiend technique on their sabers continuously. Hurry and go, cousin will protect you. Fang Xiangu bit open his finger and threw out several talismans. Schwa! Several dozen heads ferociously opened their mouths wide, biting over with evil smiles. Fang Xiangu's handsome face was somewhat pale, his gaze seemingly in despair. In an instant, long hair like snow fluttered past the corner of Fang Xiangu's eye. A wide hanfu raised its sleeves in front of him, and the hair that was like snow emitted a pale radiance in the night. Several dozen heads were immediately disintegrated. He only saw that the Zheng Yanran that looked as if she was incapable of riding swords suddenly take on a new form, and her hand clenched a Modeo 8 that blocked in front of him. The girl's smile was still frivolous as before as she gazed at Fang Xiangu with an expression of admiration. Cousin, it would be better to let little sis come play with these evil spirits. The girl's figure was chilling, and the Modeo had a cold light like iron. Yanran, could it be that you are a star general? Fang Xiangu's mouth hung agape. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.